Of course, to outsiders, such words are scoffed at. Given the geographical situation where Johor borders the Jekka Group, and with troops stationed there, Johor has to consider the face of the Jekka Group in all matters. If the Jekka Group truly wants to intervene, would Johor dare to say no? Datu Ho knows his explanation is feeble and powerless, but he has no choice. This is the best treatment he could achieve by compromising. Johor is just a small country with a territorial area of 330,000 square kilometers and a population of 30 million. Its total military force barely exceeds 100,000. Such a small country, in the face of the Jekka Group, the dominant power in Southeast Asia, can do nothing but tremble in fear. Without the support and backing of the beautiful country, Johor faces the Jekka Group. If it cannot kneel down early and sing songs of conquest, all that awaits is the Jekka Group's bitterly cold and ruthless assault. When the time comes, Johor will be conquered too, and those high-level officials who choose to resist may be purged and replaced, and then be bound by even harsher cooperation terms with the Jekka Group. In light of these considerations, especially the position beneath them, it's no surprise that Johor's leadership, like Datu Ho, chooses to actively align with the Jekka Group. It's just that most of the populace does not understand Datu Ho's actions, because before this, the domestic propaganda within Johor towards the Jekka Group was all about demonization. Now, suddenly accepting the Jekka Group's entry is psychologically hard to accept. However, for the Jekka Group, what Johor's people think is not important. Just like the beautiful country doesn't care what Japan and South Korea's people think. If they truly cared, the beautiful country wouldn't allow the station troops to do so many dirty deeds in these two countries. The Jekka Group entered Johor with an overbearing approach, not wanting to operate Johor as a native territory. What the Jekka Group needs are Johor's mining resources and industries, as well as the more vital strategic locations. Because Johor is not far below the Kra Isthmus Canal and is also a coastal country along the Malacca Strait. Controlling Johor ensures the eastern gate of the Kra Isthmus Canal remains secure, and it can also bring the golden waterway of the Malacca Strait into its grasp. At that time, even after eliminating the mutant kelp, the Jekka Group can block the strait whenever, in the name of Johor, maintaining the Kra Isthmus Canal's position, providing itself with a constant flow of wealth and geopolitical advantages. Moreover, there's a crucial point. Controlling Johor, combined with the 5 countries on Southeast Asia controlled by the Jekka Group, a massive territory will take shape. From Jinu Cape in Anand to the southern Johor, the vast sea area between them will become the Jekka Group's sphere of influence, transforming into an internal sea where the Jekka Group can freely traverse. Hence, the Jekka Group's military did not halt due to the uproar within Johor, sequentially completing the advancement and constructing military bases. Those Johor protesters were wise enough not to dare clash with the Jekka Group's forces. This is largely thanks to the years of propaganda in Johor portraying the Jekka Group as utterly evil and murderous. The people of Johor believe protesting and obstructing the Jekka Group's military would lead them to choose ruthless shooting. It must be said, these Johor people guessed right on this point because the Jekka Group would indeed open fire. Thus, the Jekka Group effortlessly completed the occupation of the entire Johor territory. Of course, the Jekka Group's external narrative is not called occupation but rather a friendly security agreement. The Jekka Group's military is there to protect its neighbor Johor from malicious threats, tirelessly traveling a long distance to safeguard their lives and property. What? You want to ask who this malicious neighbor is? Of course, it's Temasek. Could it possibly be us, the Jekka Group? The relationship between Johor and Temasek is very special. As Temasek was independent from Johor, the two countries have a close relationship. As close as Johor and Temasek are, they are separated by the Johor Strait, with the Exayan Ruwa Causeway connecting the two countries. This horizontal causeway across the Johor Strait connects Temasek with Johor, was built in 1923, with a length of 1056 meters and width of 25.3 meters, entirely made of granite. The southern part 608 meters belongs to Temasek, and the northern part 448 meters belongs to Johor. In the middle of the causeway is a railway, the west side is a highway, and the east side is a water pipe supplying water from Johor to Temasek. Civilians from both nations frequently traverse this Exayan Ruwa Causeway, strolling 1,000 meters to reach another country. However, on the night of April 12th, the sound of cannons shattered the peace between Johor and Temasek. The force launching the surprise attack was Johor's most elite unit, the 10th Parachute Brigade. This elite force consists of 3 parachute battalions, an artillery battalion, an Imperial Armored Squadron, and several support units. Although the numbers are small, the number of troops on Temasek's side of the Exayan Ruwa Causeway was even less. Charge! 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 Reclaim our land. Bombard them ferociously. Blow them up. For Johor, for the Jeka Group. Under the cover of darkness, the soldiers of Johor's 10th Parachute Brigade advanced with artillery, while soldiers quickly airdropped via helicopter on the opposite side of the Exayan Ruwa Causeway. Many Temasek soldiers were stunned from sleep due to the explosions, and by the time they reacted, armed helicopters were already approaching. Below, rocket launchers and machine guns continuously implemented fire suppression, causing heavy casualties among Temasek soldiers, many of whom were shattered by machine gun fire or obliterated without any remains by successive 70mm rockets. Once the armed helicopter group completed fire suppression, transport helicopters also landed at safe spots everywhere. Soldiers of the 10th Paratrooper Brigade rappelled onto rooftops and strategic points, then proceeded to clear the remaining enemy. As the Alvis Scorpion armored vehicles of Johor's Imperial Armored Squadron drove through the Exayan Ruwa Causeway, supporting the opposite bank, there was no suspense left in the battle. The Exayan Ruwa Causeway was successfully occupied by Johor, with Temasek soldiers either surrendering or fleeing. After occupying the Exayan Ruwa Causeway, Johor's massive military began mobilizing, advancing across the Exayan Ruwa Causeway onto Temasek's territory. The news of the war quickly spread to the outside world, shaking Temasek to its core. Temasek's mainland is about 50 kilometers east-west and roughly 26 kilometers north-south, with an area of 735.2 square kilometers and a population of over 5 million, akin to a city size. The news engulfed the whole nation rapidly. Upon receiving the news of Johor's invasion, Temasek citizens were furious. They couldn't believe Johor dared to attack them, knowing most Temasek citizens always looked down on this poor relative to the north. After the occupation of the Exayan Ruwa Causeway, Datu Ho quickly delivered a televised speech to journalists from around the world, explaining his reasons for striking against Temasek. Temasek has been persistently provoking our nation for years, and this time exceeded the limits by attempting to seize our White Reef Island. We reached the end of our patience, thus delivering a justified counterattack. Datu Ho's voice was loud, but what he said only made the journalists roll their eyes, because the so-called White Reef Island was merely a small reef island located at the intersection of the two countries, with an area as small as a soccer field and completely submerged during high tide. Such a godforsaken place used as the excuse to wage war against Temasek seemed utterly hypocritical. Clearly, your own nation hasn't resolved the domestic protests completely, and now you are waging external war. Isn't your head filled with water? More people already grasped the true nature of the situation. The real ones wanting to attack Temasek weren't Johor but the gigantic power in Southeast Asia standing behind Johor, the Jeka Group. The Jeka Group didn't provide any external explanations, nonetheless continuing to methodically build bases within Johor, seemingly oblivious to Johor's invasion of Temasek. The sun was blazing, and in Temasek, a tropical region, the temperature at this time was over 34 degrees. On the road, an army mainly composed of infantry, accompanied by a few armored units, was marching. This was the Johor 2nd Infantry Division, one of Johor's main forces. Although Johor has a large population, the economy is sluggish. The entire country has only 4 standing divisions and 10 brigades, with 60 PT-91 tanks, 196 towed artillery pieces, and 54 rocket artillery vehicles, but no self-propelled artillery. This time, to attack Temasek, the 2nd Infantry Division in Johor and the 3rd Infantry Division, along with 5 brigades, totaling nearly 40,000 troops, advanced on 2 lines with overwhelming force invading Temasek's territory. The Johor soldiers were sweating profusely. Sparse training made marching under such intense sun torture. Many soldiers, when unnoticed, sneaked to shady spots to rest. The military discipline, if not a complete mess, was close to non-existent. The division commander Tikpu sat in the command vehicle, frowning as he watched the sluggish marching troops. Have the army speed up. We need to occupy their barracks and cities before Temasek reacts. Speed is crucial in war. The staff officer showed a troubled expression, saying, Commander, many of our armored cars and tanks have broken down, coupled with the soldiers' physical exhaustion. If we rush like this, we'll be at a disadvantage if we encounter battle. Tikpu's eye twitched slightly. He knew the staff officer was speaking truthfully. Their 2nd Division, or rather the entire Johor, except for the elite 10th Paratrooper Brigade, was seldom trained, causing soldiers to be extremely unfit for such fully armed long-distance raids. The armored cars and tanks also broke down here in Temasek due to lack of maintenance, leaving equipment along the way. Even so, as Tikpu was about to urge, a communications soldier quickly ran over, urgently saying, Commander, Jeka Group has sent intelligence that satellites have spotted Temasek troops ahead. What, so fast? Tikpu was shocked. Their surprise attack had been long planned. Yesterday, the 10th Paratrooper Brigade seized the Exayan Ruwa Causeway, a vital route. Then, the rocket artillery targeted several of Temasek's airports and barracks, destroying many of Temasek's warplanes, damaging runways, impairing their air superiority, and creating chaos in the barracks to give their army a chance. Satellites show Temasek is forming a defensive line, with about 3,000 soldiers but no heavy firepower detected. Only 3,000? Prepare to engage. Pierce through them for me. Hearing there were only 3,000, Tikpu immediately became spirited. His Johor 2nd Infantry Division numbered 12,000, a 4-to-1 manpower advantage. He was suddenly thrilled. If he annihilated this Temasek force and won the initial victory, his reputation in the country would soar. Under Tikpu's orders, the 2nd Infantry Division began changing formation, with those armored cars and tanks moving forward. The rocket artillery and towed artillery positioned at the rear began setting up artillery positions. An hour later, the Johor 2nd Infantry Division could already see the Temasek troops. It was a reinforced infantry regiment from Temasek, urgently constructing defenses. But due to limited time and Temasek's flat terrain, with virtually no natural fortifications to guard, their defensive line was just an outline. Fire! Tikpu excitedly issued the order, and the division artillery regiment in the rear loaded shells into the artillery, then pulled the firing ropes. As the muzzle flashed, rounds of 105 and 155 mm howitzers flew toward Temasek's positions. Boom! 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 Continuous explosions rang out. Tikpu's face darkened because many shells missed their target. What the hell are the artillery doing? Immediately adjust the aim. Tikpu cursed loudly. He saw the Temasek troops who had reacted were already dropping their engineering shovels, running and scurrying around, diving into anti-artillery bunkers, losing the sudden attack's effect of causing casualties. The second round of shells soon fell, more accurately this time, but most Temasek soldiers had already hidden in trenches and anti-artillery bunkers. Although many trenches were dug shallow and simply, and anti-artillery bunkers were collapsed by explosions, after all, they had some shelter, not exposed on plain ground being bombed, minimizing casualties. Tikpu's face was dark, infuriated by his own artillery's poor performance. Such a good opportunity was wasted in vain. He wanted to give the artillery regiment commander a crotch kick for being unable to shoot accurately, wondering what use he served. After the artillery fired a base amount of ammunition, Temasek's land where they stationed was left with scorched craters. After the shelling ended, Johor 2nd Infantry Division launched its formal ground attack. Leading the charge were the pride of Johor Army, the PT-91 main battle tanks. This main battle tank has a crew of 3, combat weight of 45.3 tons, maximum speed of 60 kilometers per hour, and weaponry comprising a 125 mm cannon, a 7.62 mm machine gun, and a 12.7 mm machine gun. Behind the tanks, armored cars and infantry fighting vehicles interspersed, soldiers riding in infantry fighting vehicles kept pace with tanks, dismounting to provide cover when approaching, unfolding a somewhat irregular armored infantry coordination tactic on the spot. The irregularity stemmed from the disorganized attack layout of these tanks and armored cars, perhaps due to excessive tension. Many tanks and armored cars didn't follow the intended attack routes, even making blunders like running over their own troops. Bang! A PT-91 main battle tank fired fiercely, its 125mm smoothbore cannon spewing nearly 2 meters of flames, the shockwaves stirring up a large cloud of dust. Ahead, a high-explosive bomb exploded. This PT-91 tank targeted a heavy machine gun position, but the shell missed and detonated dozens of meters away, frightening the Temasek soldiers, who immediately abandoned their machine guns and relocated. Bang! 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 The machine gun on the armored vehicle opened fire, tracers drawing clear trajectories in the air, causing Temasek soldiers who were peeking out to quickly hide back into the trenches. Some were slower to react, getting directly hit by the machine gun's shells, their upper bodies instantly torn apart, separating from their lower bodies with visceral fragments splattering onto nearby comrades, staining the trenches with blood. The trenches erupted into chaos, with soldiers visible fleeing or frozen in shock. Counterattack. Hit those invading Johor bastards hard. Don't let these paupers look down on us. In the trench, a Temasek officer rallied morale. The Temasek soldiers were all outraged, filled with the determination to defend their homeland. They deeply hated the invading Johor soldiers, boosting their combat resolve, and some losses didn't deter them. Soon, as the Johor attacking forces approached closer, Temasek's counterattack quickly arrived. Whoosh! A Temasek soldier emerged from the trench with a rocket launcher, aimed for 4 or 5 seconds, and squeezed the trigger at a PT-91 main battle tank. The rocket's range was very close. This was supposed to be the time for coordinated infantry to play a role with the tanks. While tanks have heavy armor and powerful firepower, their ability to perceive the external environment is weak, and on the battlefield, the tank commander can only observe through vision-limited sighting devices. At this time, the coordinating infantry can clearly observe the surrounding environment, guiding tanks to clear specific fire points, and providing cover for tanks, attacking enemy infantry sneaking to ambush the tank. However, the coordinated infantry with this PT-91 main battle tank, out of fear, all huddled behind the tank, treating it completely like a shield, failing to provide effective cover. The rocket hit the tank's track with a boom, tearing it off, rendering the PT-91 tank immobile, turning it into an easy target. Several more shots were fired from rocket artillery, and the rockets successfully penetrated the weak side armor of the PT-91 tank. Metal streams pierced inside the tank, killing the crew. Similar scenes occurred frequently as Temasek infantry repeatedly used rockets, anti-tank missiles, and even self-destructing drones for sneak attacks, severely frustrating the offensive Johor forces. After losing several tanks and over dozens of armored vehicles, the armored units began to stall, shrinking timidly. The accompanying Johor infantry were even more terrified. A PT-91 main battle tank was hit by an anti-tank missile and exploded, the blast flipping back a group of following Johor soldiers. Soldiers lay around crying and screaming. Bam! 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 Seizing the opportunity of lost tank firepower, concealed Johor heavy machine guns immediately opened fire. Driven heavy machine guns swept down a batch of Johor soldiers. This immediately caused panic among nearby Johor soldiers. Many turned around and ran. This running triggered a chain reaction. More soldiers felt afraid and retreated backward. As they shrunk back, they further exposed tanks and armored vehicles, these cumbersome steel vehicles without infantry cover. Without infantry coordinating cover, many Temasek soldiers attacked from blind spots of tanks and armored vehicles, hitting more successfully. Now tanks and armored vehicles were terrified too. Reversing quickly, infantry fled, tanks fled. The attacking Johor forces were repelled even before reaching 100 meters from the trenches. The first wave of offense thus ended hastily. Upon calculating the results, the Johor forces with firepower advantage ended up losing more than Temasek's side, losing many expensive steel vehicles. Tikpu sat in the armored command vehicle, watching the battlefield footage transmitted back by the drone. His troops' blind actions made his face sternly terrifying. The opponent only has 3,000 people, all infantry. Still can't defeat this? Tikpu desperately wanted to curse. This attack was so incompetent. completely failing to utilize our firepower advantage. Both armored units and soldiers were cowardly. I'll organize a second wave attack immediately. We must take this position within 3 hours. The staff, also feeling utterly humiliated, went to organize the second assault wave. 3 hours quickly passed, followed by 5 hours, 7 hours, until 10 hours later, the position was still firmly held by Temasek soldiers. The Johor soldiers showcased textbook-style retreat performances again and again, attacking, firing, then fleeing. They fled as if practiced countless times, very skillful. After 10 hours, the Johor 2nd Infantry Division ceased attacks, because Temasek's large forces arrived as reinforcements. In the Sky Dome, 7 or 8 Temasek F-15 fighter jets, F-16 fighter jets appeared here. Since they urgently repaired the airfields, these fighters could take off. Boom! With bombs dropped from the warplanes, Johor's artillery positions burst into flames, blown into bits. On the ground, Temasek's armored units appeared in the battlefield too. Charging forward were Deep Gray Leopard 2 tanks. In performance and tank crew training, PT-91 tanks were inferior to Leopard 2 tanks. Once engaged, the battle-loss ratio was overly exaggerated, coupled with more Johor tanks and armored vehicles destroyed by F-15 fighters. Unsurprisingly, the soldiers of Johor's 2nd Infantry Division quickly collapsed. Fleeing soldiers were everywhere, originally wanting to conquer Temasek. The army suffered a crushing defeat in the first engagement. With the defeat of Johor's 2nd Infantry Division, more bitter outcomes were swallowed by Johor. Within Temasek, other Johor forces engaging Temasek were mostly losing rather than winning. The large Johor forces entering Temasek shifted from offensive to continuously being pressured by Temasek, yielding occupied lands. Temasek fully showcased its strength as Southeast Asia's military powerhouse. Though small in population, Temasek's regular army's quality was generally higher than Johor's. Moreover, all 18-year-old citizens of Temasek must serve in the military. After Johor's invasion, a large number of Temasek citizens turned into reserves. Their soldier count even exceeded Johor's. Combined with Temasek's wealth, holding the golden maritime route of the Malacca Strait, gaining favor from Western countries, especially the Beautiful Country, with various powerful military equipment abundantly supplied. Temasek's Air Force prowess ranks among the top in all Southeast Asian countries, with the highest military budget of Southeast Asia, reaching $15 billion. It was thus before JECA Group's emergence. Due to wealth, Temasek equips multiple advanced howitzers, rocket artillery, like Deutsche Leopard 2 tanks, France AMX-13 light tanks, and over 3,000 various armored vehicles. Air Force holding about 150 of Beautiful Country's advanced F-15SG and F-16C divided by D fighters, roughly 60 various early warning planes, patrol planes, aerial refueling planes, transport planes, trainer planes, and over 80 helicopters. Temasek's Air Force is Southeast Asia's strongest and most advanced. As Johor's opponent, it only has less than 100 tanks and fewer than 30 fighter jets. Actually, Johor wasn't without winning chances, as Temasek, such a small nation, lacks strategic depth and maneuvering space. If Johor could quickly achieve victory, it could completely daze Temasek before it could react and achieve conquest. Yet Johor's final incompetent military level, sluggish efficiency, missed this great opportunity. By the time Temasek repaired its airfields and barracks, Johor's disastrous defeat was foreseeable. The frontline defeat report sent to President of Johor, Datuk, who was quite confident in gifting Temasek to JECA Group, turned pale with shock. Realizing he messed up, could only look crestfallen, urgently seek help from JECA Group. Quickly report to JECA Group, inform Commander Su. Temasek we can't handle. The outcome of the Battle of Temasek was full of twists and turns, leaving onlookers worldwide stunned. Originally, Johor's successful surprise attack had them poised to sweep through Temasek. However, in just a few days, the tide of the battle dramatically reversed. Johor, which had aggressively invaded Temasek, was beaten and fled, abandoning its gains, which Temasek then recaptured. The Western society wouldn't miss the chance to mock this situation. The arrogant Johorans paid the price for their hubris. This is the cost of invading a nation of freedom and justice. Johor's neglected military preparedness had long sowed the seeds of its downfall. The beautiful country announced sanctions against Johor. Their spokesperson declared that they would not permit a brutal country to invade others recklessly and cause such devastation. The sanctions would not be lifted as long as the Johor continues the war. As Johor fully fell under the sway of the Jekka Group, becoming its subordinate, Western media began to despise Johor as well, with mocking news reports being overwhelmingly abundant. Not long ago, these same Western media had depicted Johor as a country upholding world order, justice, and friendliness, serving as a frontline ally against the evil Axis forces. With Johor's successive defeats, a flurry of pleas for help reached the Jekka Group like snowflakes. Datu, the president, personally flew to the Chan country, both tearfully lamenting and enumerating the ties between the two sides. In the end, after Johor promised some compensation and conditions, the Jekka Group took action to respond to Johor's plea for help. Temasek brazenly annexed Johor's White Reef Island. According to the security provisions signed between the Jekka Group and Johor, the Jekka Group now declares war on Temasek. A brief announcement issued blandly by the Jekka Group, without much fanfare or escalation. Yet, as soon as this announcement was made, it caused a major upheaval among the world's leading nations. This is because the Jekka Group was still engaged in a war with India to the west, and now they opened a new front to the south, engaging in two-front warfare. Two-front warfare has always been a military taboo. Although Temasek is indeed a small country, it is nonetheless a Southeast Asian military force. Could the Jekka Group really be so unbothered? More countries immediately began to observe the beautiful country's response. Journalists, like a swarm of mad bees, rushed toward the Black Palace. It was well known that Johor had now completely turned to the Jekka Group, acting as their pawn, while Temasek was a subordinate to the beautiful country. Now, with the Jekka Group standing up for its subordinate, would the beautiful country also stand up for Temasek? If the beautiful country chose to intervene, they would surely collide with the Jekka Group, and if war broke out, it would be a major news story of the century. However, to the outside world's disappointment, when faced with the media's pressing questions, the beautiful country's spokesperson merely evaded, sometimes saying Congress and the military are studying a combat plan, then our commitment to Temasek's security is unwavering, but under current conditions it is inappropriate, and then, if the Jekka Group further escalates its aggression against other nations, it will face our country's devastating attacks. Although they talked tough, there were no public declarations of war, nor any sign of deploying forces or reinforcing Temasek. Now, the whole world understood the beautiful country's stance. Evidently, the beautiful country had no intention of sending troops into the quagmire of Temasek to vie with the Jekka Group on land and sea. Temasek, as a pawn, was abandoned by the beautiful country. The Jekka Group moved with thunderous force once it decided to act. Magic bird fighters took to the sky, flying over the Johor Strait, to engage with Temasek's air force. It was unsurprising that the Jekka Group's air force, with its superior numbers and performance, quickly gained the upper hand in air combat, gradually seizing air superiority from Temasek. On land, forces including the Jekka Group's 5th Heavy Armored Synthetic Brigade, 42nd Infantry Division, 59th Mountain Brigade, 1st Mechanized Battle Brigade, along with independent regiment-level technical units such as engineers, artillery, and aviation totaling over 30,000 troops, boldly crossed the Exayan Ruwa Causeway into Temasek without any concealment. The vanguard was the 1st Mechanized Battle Brigade, the Jekka Group's armored ace responsible for breaching enemy lines, becoming the first Jekka Group troops to enter Temasek. Commander Su's task for us is to end the battle within 3 days, said Hao Guang, the commander of the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade, as he looked over the 2 long lines of troops on the Exayan Ruwa Causeway. One line was the Jekka Group's army marching into Temasek, their uniforms crisp and morale strong. The other was the Johor soldiers withdrawing from Temasek, faces grim and bandaged, retreating in defeat. The 2 forces crossed on the Exayan Ruwa Causeway, one exuding high morale and the other dejected, perfectly illustrating the difference between a strong army and a weak one. Seeing the soldiers of the Jekka Group, the Johor soldiers looked on with envy. This was what an army should be. Standing next to Hao Guang was Hao Guyu, the battalion commander of the 1st Mecha Brigade and also the ace pilot of the Mechanical Combat Brigade. Just as fighter jets have ace pilots, so do tanks with ace crews. Hao Guyu had the best combat record in the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade. Commander, isn't 3 days a bit too long? Hao Guyu laughed a few times. It wasn't because he was arrogant, but because the tiny place of Temasek was too easy for the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade to take on in just 3 days. Capturing prisoners also takes time. Hao Guang retracted his gaze and patted Hao Guyu on the shoulder. Go on. The battle has officially started. Okay, Dad. I'll be the first to enter Temasek City this time and make you proud. Hao Guyu chuckled, nimbly climbed onto the A-180 Spider main battle mecha beside him, and slid into the cockpit. You brat. I told you to use my title when working. Hao Guang laughed and scolded, watching the mecha move away. He smiled at a few accompanying staff officers and said, Let's set off too and bring back the good news to Commander Su as soon as possible. April 15th. On the day Jekka Group declared war on Temasek and officially sent troops into Temasek, its forces soon encountered the Temasek army. Because Temasek was so small, just a few hundred square kilometers of land, it was easy to bump into each other at any turn. Near Zhanghua Nature Park, a routed army of Johor was fleeing in large numbers, pursued by Temasek's mixed 1st Division. Temasek's army was composed of 3 mixed divisions, each comprising 2 infantry brigades, 1 mechanized brigade, 1 reconnaissance battalion, 1 artillery battalion, 1 high-gun battalion, 1 engineering battalion, 1 rapid response division with 3 infantry brigades, and 1 mechanized brigade. The mixed 1st Division appearing before them was the main regular army of Temasek, totaling just over 10,000 people. Kill all these Johor people. Don't let them escape. Chase them down. Victory belongs to the great Temasek. Charge. The morale of Temasek's 1st Mixed Division was high as they fought against Johor's army, displaying strong confidence. Commander, we can't advance any further. Jekka Group's army has already entered our territory. If we proceed, we're likely to encounter them. Commander Wen Ruichuan of the 1st Mixed Division was issuing orders for pursuit, but the staff officer raised a different opinion. Ahead is Johor's 3rd Infantry Brigade. Are we going to just watch them escape? Wen Ruichuan looked at the retreating Johor soldiers. Since most of Johor's transport vehicles were destroyed in air raids, only their infantry were running on foot. The 1st Mixed Division had numerous mechanized vehicles, and with 4 wheels in action, it wouldn't take long to surround and completely eliminate this routed 3rd Infantry Brigade. But the staff officer wanted to say more, but when Ruichuan interrupted him, proceed as is, continue the pursuit. Even if Jekka Group comes, it's not that we can't fight them. Look at the high morale of our soldiers. No enemy is terrifying in front of them. Proudly, when Ruichuan spoke, having won continuous battles against Johor recently, with many Temasek people like him, a bit unaware of their position. This is what's commonly known as bullying weaker opponents too much to the point of perceiving oneself as a master. Under Wen Ruichuan's order, Temasek soldiers chased even more eagerly. Half an hour later, near a wooded area. Crunch! Crunch! The fleeing Johor deserters suddenly heard noises from nearby woods as if large swathes of trees were breaking, and flocks of birds took off from the woods, chirping and unwilling to settle. Not only Johor soldiers but also those from the Temasek army couldn't figure it out, subconsciously looking toward the woods. Then they saw a jaw-dropping scene. A towering green tree slowly falling, dense leaves floating in the air, countless branches snapping with crunching sounds. Behind the fallen tree, a towering 12-meter-tall metallic monstrosity stepped forward. Standing 12 meters tall, equivalent to the height of a 4-story building, it bore a 203mm cannon on its back, 2 30mm machine guns, 4 20mm machine guns, and 8 12.7mm heavy machine guns, its array of firepower points making people's scalps tingle. All who saw the Spider main battle mecha, whether Johor deserters or Temasek soldiers, felt a chill run through their bodies, with a genuine fear emerging in their hearts. It was like the first time humans saw a powerful predator like a tiger or lion. The image of the spider main battle mecha had unparalleled psychological deterrence. What terrified Temasek soldiers even more was that the appearance of the first spider main battle mecha was just the beginning. Soon, accompanied by the sounds of tree after tree falling, the second, the third, the fourth, one after another, the towering spider main battle mechas toppled trees, their 8 long metallic legs striding over shrubs and weeds, appearing in the sight of Temasek's mixed 1st Division, as all 134 spider main battle mechas of the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade arrived. On these spider main battle mechas were the genetic warriors of the Steel Camp, ready for battle. The Jekka Group's 1st Mecha Combat Brigade completed its first encounter with the Temasek Army. All troops, commence the free hunt. Brigadier General Hao Guang issued the battle order through the radio channel. The next moment, each spider main battle mecha sped up, like tigers released from their cage, transitioning from walking to running mode, with 8 metallic legs traversing the terrains faster and more agilely than any tank. Boom! 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 During the advance, the 203mm cannons on the backs of the spider mechas also opened fire. A Temasek Leopard 2 main battle tank was hit directly, with a 100-kilogram shell exploding instantly. Even the Leopard 2, one of the world's most advanced tanks at present, is fragile like cardboard in the face of the 203mm cannon. The massive explosion blew the Leopard 2 tank into a twisted heap of scrap metal, countless shattered parts like the scythe of death, cutting down the surrounding Temasek soldiers, littering the ground with Temasek soldiers crying out in pain, clutching their wounds. The power of the 203mm main cannon far surpasses that of the 155mm howitzer, with one shot disassembling the tank into parts, falling into the crowd of infantry, instantly clearing the ground, leaving only a crater nearly 10 meters in diameter, along with scattered limbs. As the machine guns and artillery also opened fire, the spider main battle mecha transformed into a moving fortress of firepower, commencing its massacre. The genetic warriors accompanying the spider main battle mecha also landed one after another, coordinating with the spider main battle mecha, further accelerating the battle process. Hao Guyu drove his A-180 spider mecha, charging wildly across the battlefield, leaving behind only bodies and wreckage. The occasional retaliatory fire from the enemy, those armor-piercing bullets shot from the tank's smoothbore cannon, were difficult to threaten or break the defense of the spider main battle mecha due to its thick armor and meat tumor. Infantry anti-tank fire also suffered brutal attacks from the genetic warriors, as Hao Guyu broke through seamlessly, quickly piercing through the Temasek Mixed 1st Division, destroying 5 tanks, 13 armored vehicles, and killing over 200 infantry. This was merely Hao Guyu's personal achievements, while other spider main battle mechas also had considerable success. As expected, the Temasek forces directly crumbled. If the Temasek military were a tiger fighting a wolf, then Jekka Group's fight against Temasek would be like a T-Rex against a tiger. The opponents were on totally different levels. Temasek soldiers cried out, either surrendering on the spot or being killed, powerless against the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade. The confidence they once had when fighting Johor was revealed as worthless at the moment they truly faced Jekka Group. Surrender. Total surrender. When Ruechuan's back was drenched in sweat as he issued this command with difficulty, watching the one-sided slaughter on the battlefield, wishing he could slap himself. He initially thought his army would stand a chance against Jekka Group, but when truly confronted, he realized how naive his thoughts had been. The ruthless firepower of the spider main battle mecha, its virtually indestructible armor, agile maneuverability, and the coordinated effort of the genetic warriors, they were completely bulldozed on land. Resistance and morale were unable to challenge them. Temasek soldiers rapidly dropped their weapons, fell to their knees, raised a French salute, surrendering to Jekka Group, fearing any delay would add them to the casualty list. The Johor fugitive soldiers were dumbfounded, witnessing the Temasek troops, who once chased them like dogs, being utterly weak and helpless before Jekka Group, swiftly consumed. This was definitely not because the Temasek soldiers were weak. If they were really weak, they wouldn't have been beaten so badly. This only showed that Jekka Group was excessively strong, defining the ease of battle. Many Johor soldiers shuddered when seeing the battlefield littered with corpses. Fortunate to have joined Johor early, otherwise the fate of the Temasek army could have befallen the Johor army. fearing the devastating massacre by the Spider main battle mechas. Who is your commander? These prisoners are yours to oversee. Hao Guang utilized the Johor deserters, ordering them to guard the prisoners of the Temasek Mixed 1st Division, then continued leading the troops onward, as if annihilating a 10,000-man enemy force was a trivial matter. The 1st Mecha Combat Brigade was like a sharp blade, encountering only the beginning of the Temasek Mixed 1st Division's plight. In the ensuing battles, any enemy before the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade would be effortlessly pierced by the Spider main battle mecha, regardless of Temasek soldiers' defense. From entering Temasek territory, within just 11 hours, the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade had sliced through Temasek, advancing from the Johor Strait in Temasek to the southern Malacca Strait. During this, the speed of advancement could only have been faster had it not been for the time taken to capture prisoners. Due to the rapid breakthrough of the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade, Temasek's rear supply troops and ammunition warehouses had no time for relocation, much less resistance, turning the battlefield into chaos by Jekka Group. Temasek's army couldn't halt the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade. The originally deployed forces were fragmented, then encircled and consumed one by Jekka Group's other forces. Temasek's 50,000 regular troops, adding reserves, claimed to be 150,000 strong, appeared substantial. But after Jekka Group declared war in merely 2 days, the resistant military strength of Temasek had been completely wiped out, with soldiers either dead or surrendering. Temasek was just too small, lacking strategic buffer, unable to retreat without a place, unable to flee, deprived of maneuvering space, forced into a hard confrontation with Jekka Group. But they were no match for Jekka Group's Iron Fist. Just one charge from the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade was sufficient to overwhelm them. Jekka Group used a lightning war tactic, with the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade breaking through the Temasek Army's lines, isolating their units into disconnected entities, and eliminating them one by one during maneuvers. In reality, using such a tactic in a country as small as Temasek, which is only a few hundred square kilometers, felt like wielding a sledgehammer to crack a nut. For such a small territory, Jekka Group's army regarded it as merely a warm-up, and the battle concluded in a very relaxed and joyful manner. Once the main forces of the Temasek army were annihilated, Temasek City also fell beneath the iron hooves of the Jekka Group. Temasek City is one of the largest ports in the world and an important international financial center, ranking first globally in urban infrastructure, earning the title of a garden city. Temasek City houses millions of people. Nearly 9/10 of Temasek's population is concentrated in Temasek City. On April 17th, the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade was already at the city gates and marched directly into the city. Rows of Spider main battle mechs trampled over their most prosperous capital, under the despondent and helpless gaze of Temasek citizens. No matter how resentful they felt, facing those terrifying Spider main battle mechs and dangerous genetic warriors, these Temasek citizens could only bury all their grievances deep in their hearts. For even the upper echelons of Temasek had already knelt in submission, with smiles at the city gates, welcoming the entry of Jekka Group's army, which was also to welcome their new masters. There was no need for Jekka Group to act. The upper echelons of Temasek had already completed their own purge. Pro-beautiful country spokespersons were either overthrown and punished or fled the country overnight. Those who remained were loyal to the Jekka Group. An endless stream of troops entered Temasek City. Tank tracks crushed the streets, with tens of tons of weight damaging the road surface. Soldiers marched proudly with steel guns on their shoulders, their steel helmets gleaming brilliantly in the sunlight, marching with a neat formation on the streets, their footsteps synchronized and powerful. Armed helicopters shuttled between skyscrapers, dropping leaflets announcing the arrival of Jekka Group. All of this culminated as the A-180 Spider main battle mecha planted Jekka Group's flag atop the Congress building in Temasek. Simultaneously, Hao Guang, on behalf of the Jekka Group, received the unconditional surrender document from the Temasek president. In the presence of countless media flashlights, it marked the end of the war. The news spread, and even countries that believed Jekka Group could conquer Temasek found it unbelievable. Because the speed of occupying and conquering Temasek was too fast, the time was too short. In just 2 days, with 150,000 mobilized troops, Tamasek fell under the military might of Jeka Group, becoming a defeated nation. At this time, the United Nations Security Council had just begun preparations for a joint conference at the request of the beautiful country, regarding Jeka Group and Johor's abrupt invasion of Tamasek. However, before they could convene, without any agenda in sight, Tamasek had already capitulated, being occupied by Jeka Group in just 2 days, surrendering and submitting to Jeka Group. The beautiful country was stunned, and Western countries were also stunned, including Tamasek's permanent representative to the UN Security Council, who was extremely embarrassed. He had originally planned to accuse Jeka Group's atrocities at the Security Council, but with his country surrendering first, submitting to Jeka Group, he could no longer hold his position reasonably, and had to immediately change his tone from protesting Jeka Group to supporting them. Given that even Tamasek, the victim itself, disregarded it, the Security Council conference naturally could not proceed smoothly. Despite the beautiful country's displeasure, there was nothing they could do. In reality, even if something had been concluded, Jeka Group would not have accepted it. Any documents they didn't sign were just waste paper, not even worth using as toilet paper. In summary, with Jeka Group's conquest of a nation in 2 days, their reputation spread further, leaving countries around the world in shock. Especially the Southeast Asian countries felt a chill run down their spines. Others might find this entertaining, but being neighbors to Jeka Group, they couldn't find it amusing at all. Tamasek, a small military power in Southeast Asia, considered quite capable among Southeast Asian countries, lasted only 2 days against Jeka Group's military might. With such a knife-sharpening neighbor as Jeka Group, who wouldn't be afraid, they couldn't sleep well, always on edge. Tamasek, Changi Naval Base. This naval base is located at the northeastern corner of Tamasek, occupying 86 hectares, with a berth area of 6.2 kilometers and a harbor area of 128 hectares. The main facilities include the Fleet Headquarters Office Building, Tactical Training Center, Command and Control Center, Navy Training Base, docks, warehouses, and ship repair facilities. As a deep water port, Changi Naval Base can accommodate large ship formations, including aircraft carriers. Tamasek has signed a Memorandum of Understanding with Beautiful Country, allowing the Beautiful Country military to lease the use of Changi Naval Base, providing logistical support and resupply for passing ships, including large aircraft carrier formations, as Tamasek aligns with Beautiful Country in exchange for protection and privilege. Due to the importance of Changi Naval Base, it serves as a crucial bridgehead for the Beautiful Country Navy to gain westward and eastward capability, guarding the Malacca Strait. By using Changi Naval Base, Beautiful Country naval forces can control the entire Malacca Strait within 24 hours, and the Beautiful Country Navy's 7th Fleet can easily connect the Pacific and Indian Oceans via the South Sea and Andaman Sea. Using this as a connection point, Beautiful Country constructs a network of bases in the Southeast Asia region. To this day, the Beautiful Country deploys hundreds of military personnel at Changi Naval Base, along with 3 coastal combat ships. April 20th, right after Jeka Group fully occupied Tamasek, forcing Tamasek to surrender unconditionally. Changi Naval Base here was still in peaceful harmony, a scene of calm and joy. At 9 in the morning, Beautiful Country sailors conducted routine training as usual. Woo, woo-hoo, woo-hoo. Suddenly, piercing alarm sounds rang out over Changi Naval Base, the sharp sound drilling straight into people's ears. No matter what Beautiful Country Navy soldiers were doing, they put down what they were holding and looked around, momentarily unable to understand the situation. Is there an alarm drill today? Haven't received any notice. I also haven't received any orders from above. What kind of mess is going on above? If they pressed it wrongly, hurry and turn it off. It's deafening. Feels like something's not right. My heart's uneasy for no reason. Beautiful Country soldiers were discussing among themselves, perplexed by the sudden alarm. Warning, warning, unidentified warship near Changi Naval Base. Everyone return to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. But soon, the voice of the highest officer at Changi Naval Base echoed with a tone of urgency and anxiety. Beautiful Country's naval soldiers were jolted awake, finally understanding the seriousness of the matter. and rushed to their respective posts. Some ran towards the coastal combat ships docked at the berth. Some ran towards the anti-aircraft gun positions set up within the base. Some went to launch missile boats. However, there wasn't enough time for them to reach their battle stations. In the waters outside Changi Naval Base, thousands of tons of seawater surged up and parted, revealing a Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser with a ship length close to 250 meters and a displacement of over 40,000 tons. This is the Alova River Cruiser, the flagship of JECA Group Navy's First Fleet. After surfacing, although still several kilometers from the dock, the massive size of the Devourer cruiser was apparent, and beautiful country soldiers at the Changi Naval Base Pier could all see it, feeling their scalp go numb and becoming panic-stricken. As a focus of global attention recently, the powerful presence of the Devourer-class cruiser was already known across the world, with hundreds of missiles in its arsenal of the cruiser, its excellent anti-aircraft capability, and the destruction of country a navy. The Devourer cruiser had cemented its prestige. And currently, the Changi Naval Base only had 3 coastal combat ships, each with a ship length of 127 meters and a displacement of less than 3,000 tons, classified as light escort ships. The total displacement of the 3 coastal combat ships is only 1/5 of the Alova River cruiser, and their combat power is significantly inferior. With just 1 round of fire, it could sink all 3 coastal combat ships. Moreover, the coastal combat ships were still docked at the pier like sitting ducks, making them even less capable of confronting the Alova River cruiser. The two sides were not within the same league. The appearance of such a cruiser here seemed anything but well-intentioned. The beautiful country soldiers at Changi Naval Base were all on edge. What does the JECA Group mean? Openly invading our naval base. You are violating international law. The commander of Changi Naval Base, Major General Navin, stood in the command room, reporting the situation to Indo-Pacific Command while using radio, trying repeatedly to successfully establish contact with the Alova River cruiser. On the Alova River cruiser, Captain Tu Fingpu sneered twice, speaking into the radio. "How dare you, beautiful country? Accuse us first when you're at fault. This is our land. You violated our homeland. Even if you report to the United Nations Security Council, we are the ones in the right." Navin's temples bulged with veins. He gritted his teeth, saying, "Nonsense. Changi Naval Base was handed over to us by Temasek under an agreement, assigning it for use by us, beautiful country, legally. Temasek? The current Temasek has already submitted to us, JECA Group. The agreement they signed with you, beautiful country, is not legally valid. We, JECA Group, do not recognize it." Tu Fingpu stood on the command bridge, looking at the rather chaotic Changi Naval Base, and issued an order. "From now on, all personnel at your Changi Naval Base, immediately lay down your arms. Any resistance will be considered a declaration of war against our country, and you'll face the consequences." As soon as he finished speaking, Navin, who heard this, directly swore. "Damn. If you JECA Group dare to mess around, we'll definitely kick your asses hard. Let's wait and see." Leaving these words, behind the Alova River, appeared several destroyers, transport ships, and tank landing ships. The Alova River was unmasked, the 203mm twin naval gun at the bow lifted, aiming at Changi Naval Base. Numerous cruise missiles were also positioned, ready to turn Changi Naval Base into rubble at a moment's notice. The transport ships and tank landing ships began accelerating towards Changi Naval Base. On the transport ships, hovercrafts were lowered, each filled with fully armed, gun-mounted JECA Group soldiers. As the hovercrafts raced ashore, the JECA Group soldiers jumped out one by one, holding their guns, forming combat formations, and charging towards Changi Naval Base. A tank landing ship approached the southern beachhead of Changi Naval Base, and as it neared the coast, the front hatch opened. Bang! A gigantic steel mechanism dropped into the sea, unexpectedly a Spider main battle mecha. Spider main battle mechas entered the water one after another. The water here is 3 meters deep, enough to submerge a heavy main battle tank completely. But for the 12-meter-tall Spider main battle mechas, the seawater was only waist-deep. The 8 long metal legs crossed the water continuously, carrying seabed silt, and mounted the beachhead. This tank landing ship carried a mechanical armor company, comprising 10 Spider main battle mechas. On the back of each Spider main battle mecha were 2 genetic warriors. During this process, the beautiful country soldiers at Changi Naval Base had the opportunity to attack, as the transport and landing ships during the beach landing are quite vulnerable. But with the Ilova River vigilantly watching nearby, any attack action would lead to their catastrophic end. Navan turned livid, hesitating to report to the Indo-Pacific Command, while he dared not order an attack, knowing well of the disparity in strength. Initiating an attack could instantly trigger war between the two countries, potentially leading to the destruction of Changi Naval Base, and he, a major general, might be imprisoned or even die in battle. In Navan's conflict, the Spider main battle mechas had already landed ashore, the 203mm ominous artillery and the machine gun strongholds making the beautiful country soldiers in Changi Naval Base extremely terrified, swallowing hard, stepping back. All understood why Temasek fell in just 2 days. Facing these war machines was hardly humanly resistible. Hands on head, squat down. I said hands on head, squat down. Don't you understand human language? Still want to resist? Haven't suffered before, huh? The Jekka soldiers began entering Changi Naval Base, disarming and capturing the beautiful country soldiers. Some beautiful country soldiers looked defiant, but a few stocks knocked them into submission. Others hid inside buildings, playing hide-and-seek with Jekka group soldiers, fearing persecution and cleansing upon exposure. At this moment, the genetic warriors stepped in. The scouting genetic warriors left the beautiful country soldiers hiding with no place to hide. Come out! A genetic warrior threw a tear gas grenade into the room, and soon coughing, along with shit, bastard, beautiful country obscenities, came from inside. 7 or 8 beautiful country soldiers rushed out in embarrassment. Each one coming out received 2 slaps from the genetic warriors, falling to the ground. Facing the overwhelming presence of genetic warriors covered in biological spiders, the beautiful country soldiers held back furious anger, their faces turning purple with rage yet not daring to speak against them. Some beautiful country soldiers attempted to escape by car, but were pursued by Spider main battle mechas. A few in a Humvee pressed on the gas, hoping to escape the base before Jekka Group caught them. As for where to go afterward, they didn't know. All of Temasek was currently under Jekka Group's control. They only knew they didn't want to become prisoners. Just as they neared the entrance gate of Changi Naval Base, about to dash out, a shriek, like a boiling kettle, distinctly came from afar. Boom! A tremendous explosion erupted from the entrance, courtesy of the Spider main battle mecha's 203mm main cannon firing. The entry gate of Changi Naval Base was obliterated, leaving a huge crater blocking the way out. The blast wave flipped the Humvee, its 4 wheels exposed to the sky like a turtle on its back, looking ridiculous. As the beautiful country soldiers crawled out of the overturned Humvee, some bleeding from the head, others with broken bones, were in utter disarray. Awaiting them was a looming Spider main battle mecha, its 230mm machine guns aimed, ready to tear them to unrecognizable pieces. Surrender! I'm coming with you. Seeing this, the beautiful country soldiers' legs trembled. With escape no longer an option, they sorrowfully raised their hands and were led back to the main base by the Spider main battle mecha. Quickly, the entire Changi Naval Base was occupied by the Jekka Group. All beautiful country soldiers were driven together, count tallying to 677. When Tu Fingpu arrived at Changi Naval Base, the beautiful country soldiers were entirely controlled, and Changi Naval Base fell into Jekka Group's hands. You will regret this. You definitely will. When Navan was brought to meet Tu Fingpu alone, he instantly roared in anger. Tu Fingpu smirked, sitting imposingly in the command room on the chair that once belonged to Navan, looking down at him, saying, "Regret? We're managing affairs on our own land. It's none of your beautiful country's business. This is Temasek's territory. Is there any difference?" Tu Fingpu chuckled, rendering Navan speechless. Because Temasek had unconditionally surrendered to the Jekka Group, the whole nation's leadership was subdued under Jekka Group. Should Jekka Group wish, they could have Temasek proclaim at any time that the beautiful country's presence at Changi Naval Base is illegal and non-compliant. No different than if Jekka Group declared it themselves. Doesn't the Jekka group fear sparking a war? Navan retorted with resentment, reporting the matter to the Indo-Pacific Command, which also hesitated to make a decision, seemingly cautious of war onset. Does Jekka group, these reckless individuals, not realize that the beautiful country is the Blue Star Dominator, daring to provoke them, not fearing igniting war? This was an incomprehensible point for Navan, a man accustomed to seeing other countries submit easily, but with Jekka group, he felt the beautiful country might be the weaker side. To provide a safe environment for future generations, what of war? We firmly believe under Commander Su's leadership, no force can halt our progress. Tu Fengpu paused, then spoke with fanaticism in his eyes. Madman! Navan inwardly cursed, feeling reasoning with Tu Fengpu. This brainwashed individual was futile. The Jekka group forcibly occupied the Changi Naval Base and captured all the beautiful country soldiers stationed there. When this news was broadcast, people around the world were left in shock. The beautiful country has always been the one bullying others, but the Jekka group specifically targets the beautiful country instead. Occupying the Changi Naval Base and capturing beautiful country soldiers constitutes an extremely serious diplomatic incident anywhere, let alone with the beautiful country, the Blue Star Dominator. This is a blatant slap in the face for the beautiful country. The Navy commander of the Indo-Pacific Command was naturally furious upon hearing the news, with a twinge of regret as well. Had he known the Jekka group would act so recklessly, he would have evacuated the Changi Naval Base sooner. The beautiful country military is used to being in command, always acting independently. Even knowing Temasek was occupied, they insisted on staying at Changi Naval Base. The Jekka group showed no leniency. If the current situation is extremely embarrassing for the beautiful country, the Jekka group forcibly occupied Changi Naval Base and captured their soldiers. If they don't respond, they would lose face. But if they react too strongly, it could spark a war between both sides. Due to the urgent and unique nature of the situation, the Indo-Pacific Command quickly reported the news to the Black Palace. Black Palace. The phone was slammed to the ground, and Jesmin, the beautiful country president, looked furious, clenching his teeth. Jekka group, you've gone too far. Just now, from the phone, he received news from the Indo-Pacific Command that the Jekka group forcibly occupied the Changi Naval Base and captured all the soldiers there. When the call ended, Jesmin could no longer restrain his anger and smashed the phone to pieces, showing the extent of his rage. The Jekka group has provoked repeatedly, from the Los Angeles Olympics to today's invasion of Temasek. It was always their beautiful country stirring trouble, but now it's the opposite. The Jekka group, these bastards, are practically defecating on their beautiful country's head. No, this is clearly already defecating on their head. Jesmin stomped several times on the broken pieces of the phone and slumped back into his chair, his chest still heaving violently. The actions of the Jekka group are truly too arrogant, daring to occupy our naval base. Do they have a death wish? A voice sounded in the office. It was a middle-aged woman named Grace Bond speaking. She is the second female vice president of the beautiful country and was a former Fed executive before becoming vice president. The CIA director, Judith, was also in the office and glanced at Grace. Jekka group's arrogance wasn't something newly acknowledged. Mr. President, don't get so worked up. It's not worth it because of the Jekka group, Judith advised, trying to calm Jesmin down. What? Do you not feel suppressed? Jesmin downed the coffee on the table, still fuming. Ahem. I think the Jekka group may still upset us many times in the future. If I get this angry every time, it wouldn't be good for my health. We have to start getting used to it. Judith chuckled bitterly. He had long been aware of Jekka group's ability to incite trouble, ever since he was a mere agent before becoming the CIA director. If he got this angry every time, he'd have been hospitalized with heart problems long ago. Jesmin paused, annoyed. So we just have to swallow our pride. Becoming the president of the most powerful nation on Blue Star should have made him the most influential person, one would think. Yet after taking office, he's faced repeated provocations from the Jekka group. The anger from handling foreign affairs pales compared to the frustration caused by the Jekka group. After all, moving the carrier too close is too dangerous. Those Arsenal cruisers are hard to track. Judith shook his head, as the threat from the 6 Arsenal cruisers made the beautiful country's carrier strike groups wary of approaching JECA group-controlled territories. In the past, the Southeast Asia Sea area was always free for their beautiful country navy, but now they are forced to retreat continuously, with the carrier strike groups cautious about approaching. If we concede to the JECA group, what will the world think of our beautiful country? Jesmond hit the table, feeling extremely troubled by the JECA group's actions. Mr. President, we need to take a stand and express our firm stance. The JECA group surely doesn't want to start a war with us recklessly. They're still dealing with the war in India and need to stabilize the situation in Johor and Temasek. As long as our stance is strong and firm, the JECA group is likely to retreat. Grace proposed her view confidently. That won't work. The JECA group is notoriously stubborn. They don't know the meaning of backing down. Before Jesmond could respond, Judith objected first. Grace glared, huffing coldly. What? Do you mean I'm wrong? We can bring in allies from Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the EU to apply pressure. Can JECA group withstand that pressure? Even without these allies, our beautiful country's navy is invincible. I just can't understand why you're so afraid of the JECA group. The JECA group has Arsenal cruisers. We also have carrier strike groups, 12 of them. Why be afraid of cruisers? Judith's words were interrupted by Grace, who was full of confidence and pride. Each of the 12 carrier strike groups has its own mission, needing to stabilize our interests globally. It's impossible to deploy them all against the JECA group. Judith's mouth twitched as he looked at Grace with an innocent expression. He wanted to educate her on what an Arsenal cruiser was, but seeing her nonchalant attitude, he couldn't be bothered. She was clearly a military ignoramus. Explaining would be pointless since she wouldn't understand or even listen. All right, you two stop arguing. Jesmond raised her hand to stop the two from arguing, rubbed her temples in frustration, and said helplessly, "Let's proceed with Grace's plan first. Mr. President." Judith wanted to say something else. The whole country is watching me. We need to make an appropriate response. Jesmond's gaze was fixed on Judith, her tone firm. Judith fell silent, knowing there was more to Jesmond's words. She was clearly considering the domestic support rate, and a tough stance could help garner more votes and higher support. Eventually, Judith nodded, hoping that the JECA group would indeed back down. I understand. Our CIA will do its job and closely monitor the moves of the JECA group. April 21st. The day after the JECA group occupied the Changi Naval Base, they issued a statement regarding the incident. At the request of the Temasek government, we reclaimed the Changi Naval Base lawfully and compliantly without any reproachable actions. The JECA group cannot bear bullying the weak and occupying other countries' lands. In contrast, the beautiful country has militarized the Changi Naval Base for years, seriously harming the feelings of the Temasek people. The beautiful country needs to compensate the Temasek government. Otherwise, we will not return the beautiful country soldiers and warships. The statement from the JECA group once again shocked the world, not only forcibly occupying the Changi Naval Base but also extorting the beautiful country. Perhaps provoked by the JECA group, the previously quiet carrier strike groups of the beautiful country began to mobilize frequently once more. On the same day, the beautiful country also issued a counterstatement, accusing the JECA group in front of reporters. The actions of the JECA group completely violate international norms, infringe upon Temasek people's independence and equality, and reduce Temasek to a puppet state under the control of strong powers. I propose to submit the Temasek issue to international conferences for discussion to restore Temasek's independence and autonomy. Simultaneously, the JECA group must immediately release our soldiers and warships. Otherwise, your side will bear all consequences alone. The beautiful country made a strong stance, with the Indo-Pacific Command gradually deploying forces, clearly prepared to fight if the JECA group did not return the soldiers. The firm stance of the beautiful country suddenly heightened tensions in Southeast Asia, with the clouds of war looming over the land once again. Over the next few days, the beautiful country exerted pressure on the JECA group, actively maneuvering globally. On April 23rd, The vice president of the beautiful country visited Japan and South Korea, and ships from both countries subsequently left their ports in large numbers. On April 25th, an intense debate broke out in the Congress of the beautiful country, and according to media speculation, the topic of discussion was likely whether to go to war with the JECA Group, though the outcome of the meeting remained unknown. On April 27th, the Secretary of State of the beautiful country visited the Great British Empire, attended an EU international summit, and delivered a speech titled "The JECA Group is Using War to Coerce the World," which received thunderous applause. Japan, South Korea, the EU, the Great British Empire, and a host of the beautiful country's allies and followers fervently supported the beautiful country, vehemently criticizing the JECA Group. This time, it was not just a media onslaught against the JECA Group. The beautiful country made promises unknown to the public. Besides the loyal South Korea and Japan, the Great British Empire even dispatched warships to participate. The Elizabeth-class aircraft carrier in the Atlantic, carrying 18 F-35B fighters, along with a group of destroyers and escort ships, sailed through the Gibraltar Strait, Mediterranean, and Red Sea, joining forces with the beautiful country's carrier strike group. The current Great British Empire is no longer the bygone empire on which the sun never sets. Its naval destroyers and escort ships are mostly antiquated, serving for 20 to 30 years, with only 2 aircraft carriers left for show. Take the Elizabeth-class aircraft carrier, for example. Despite a displacement of 65,000 tons of the 18 F-35BS aboard, 10 are borrowed from the beautiful country, and the other 8 belong to the Royal Air Force of the Great British Empire, with none from the Navy. And yet, they still follow behind the beautiful country, waving their flags and contending against the JECA Group, clearly trying to save face. But immediately following, the Navy of the beautiful country announced publicly that it would lease 18 F-35B carrier-based aircraft to the Elizabeth-class aircraft carrier and waive the 10-year rent. The whole world now understood that the Great British Empire had come to beg from the beautiful country. Hence, they're following the beautiful country closely behind. Seeing the beautiful country frequently mobilizing naval forces, the JECA Group was not afraid at all. On the Southeast Asian Peninsula, the navies of the 5 countries, Chan Country, and Nan, Siam, Lansong, Junla, including the newly occupied Johor and Temasek, successively left their ports. The 6 Devourer-class cruisers of the JECA Group's first fleet have long vanished into the ocean, remaining hidden like an assassin, poised to strike a deadly blow at any given moment. Additionally, the JECA Group has intensified its control over the 2 countries of Johor and Temasek. More than 100,000 troops are deployed across the 2 nations, ensuring that the JECA Group becomes their protectorate. For any spontaneous instigation in either country, or any trouble stirred by CIA influence, demanding the expulsion of the JECA Group. The JECA Group opts for physical elimination, spearheaded by them, and supported by personnel from both nations. A newly established secret police force is tasked with apprehending citizens who spread defamation of the JECA Group both in reality and online. Once you understand your mistake, write a 10,000-word confessional letter and record a video apology to be posted online. Only then will you be released home. In the West, the Siliguri corridor remains stable. The JECA Group has not further advanced into the mainland territory of India, but rather solidified internal affairs in Assam country, trained its troops, and provided military assistance. However, in the Andaman Islands, soldiers of the JECA Group's navy forcibly landed, claiming the Andaman Islands as their own. On the newly issued map, the Andaman Islands have already been marked with the color of the JECA Group, ensuring that the Kra Isthmus Canal is no longer a concern. More importantly, the JECA Group has also incited the Baki country in the northwest of India. Seeing India's weakness, Baki country established contact with the JECA Group and, with promises made, immediately chose to act against India, contending for the Kash region. Fire was ignited within Indian territory, infuriating the Indian land, accusing the JECA Group of funding Baki country. For this deployment of troops by Baki country, it was evidently premeditated, and the intelligence advantage fully showcased. Evidently aided by satellite intelligence, which anyone could see was provided by the JECA Group. Their satellites orbit over India day and night, clearly pointing to JECA Group's interference. The JECA Group displayed indifference to this, as they were already in a state of war with India. The enemy's enemy is a friend. Beyond the West and South, internally, the JECA Group openly discussed an agenda to establish a brand new currency system. This currency system will circulate throughout Southeast Asia, Johor, and Temasek. In the future, several countries must acknowledge this currency, including other Southeast Asian countries, which are predetermined by the JECA Group as the circulation area for the currency system. Given that many small countries in Southeast Asia have weak financial systems and widely use the US dollar as a world currency, the JECA Group's move is aimed at building its own financial barrier, effectively shaking the beautiful country's dominance of the US dollar. In the future, the entire Southeast Asia region will, through economic ties, form a close-knit economic and political entity dominated by the JECA Group, rooted in JECA Group's military supremacy. It can be said that the JECA Group's recent activities are no less than those of the beautiful country, either causing trouble or just walking down the path of instigating trouble. Between the JECA Group and the beautiful country, the atmosphere is increasingly combative, with surrounding nations trembling with fear, some opting to choose sides early, while others sway like fence-sitters. Throughout Southeast Asia, due to the Changi incident, relations between the JECA Group and the beautiful country are akin to a powder keg, where a single spark can lead to a powerful explosion. As the invisible confrontation between the JECA Group and the beautiful country intensifies, the Southeast Asia situation continues to heat up. The beautiful country, leading with its Indo-Pacific Command, has mobilized warships on a large scale, looking as if it intends to encircle and annihilate the JECA Group. The so-called Indo-Pacific Command refers to the abbreviation for the Indian Ocean Pacific Command, the largest theater command of the beautiful country, centered around Japan's Okinawa, Guam, and Hawaii, stretching north to Japan and south to the Jawa country. The beautiful country has set up numerous military bases and troops in this region. The 7th Fleet is stationed at Yokosuka Port, possessing roughly 350 aircraft, more than 70 warships, with the flagship Ronald Reagan nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. The fleet is fully staffed with 60,000 personnel. Additionally, the Indo-Pacific Command can also command the 5th Fleet and the 3rd Fleet, totaling 4 Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, possessing a combat force of over 200 ships, not including the beautiful country's allies and sidekicks, purely the beautiful country's military power. As time reaches May, the beautiful country aims to further showcase its strength and intimidate JECA Group. To the west, the beautiful country's dual-carrier battle group, along with the Great British Empire's Elizabeth-class aircraft carrier, enters the Arabian Sea from the Red Sea. To the east, the beautiful country's Reagan-class aircraft carrier, accompanied by Japan and South Korea's warships, grandly entered JECA Group's Eastern Sea area, cruising near Australia. Located on the beautiful country's mainland, 2 Nimitz-class aircraft carrier battle groups from the San Diego Loma Point Naval Base also set sail, heading towards the Southeast Asia Sea area. The beautiful country's mobilization capabilities are extraordinarily strong, with 5 Nimitz-class aircraft carriers, the Great British Empire's Elizabeth-class aircraft carrier, 4 helicopter carriers from Japan, and 2 amphibious assault ships from South Korea. Even the maritime airstrike power alone is enough to inspire fear. The total scale of mobilized warships exceeds 150, both large and small, a truly nation-destroying fleet, far beyond what the Indian Navy can match. Yet, the beautiful country is still actively allied with more countries, urging NATO member states, non-NATO member states, the Gulf Cooperation Council, and other nations and forces to invite them to send warships and troops. The aggressive stance of the beautiful country also sets the entire Southeast Asia region abuzz, with nerves twitching, attracting the global gaze. The current situation resembles the Gulf War, with the beautiful country preparing to genuinely act, readying to summon a large number of allies and sidekicks to gang up on the JECA Group. Faced with such actions by the beautiful country, a normal response would either be to lower one's profile and comply or to concede a portion of benefits and seek to mend relations with the beautiful country. However, the JECA Group's approach is completely different. On May 1st, International Labor Day, the JECA Group formally launched its meticulously prepared currency system. This currency is named South Coin, signifying the ambition to dominate Southeast Asia, also known as Dragon Coin, as the JECA Group's issued currency bears the image of a soaring giant dragon. On one side of the currency is Su Jie's portrait, and on the other side is a simplified miniature map of the Southeast Asia terrain. A giant dragon traverses the miniature map, passing through the Kra Isthmus Canal and the Malacca Strait, eventually with its head probing into the Indian Ocean direction, its tail unseen, solidifying the saying, the dragon appearing head not tail. Dragon Coin employs multiple anti-counterfeiting technologies. Most amusingly, if you look at Dragon Coin in sunlight or shine it under ultraviolet light, the soaring dragon on the banknote transforms, its scaled dragon head turns into segments and rounded head antennae, resembling a giant flying centipede. Outsiders did not understand what this meant, often thinking it was the JECA Group's dark humor. Many people called it insect coin. After all, it is widely known that the JECA Group is a major insect breeder, which aligns with their emblem. The JECA Group announced Dragon Coin officially on May 1st, and Dragon Coin immediately began its official issuance. In the sphere of influence of the JECA Group, in countries like Chan Country, Siam, and Nan, Lansong, and Jinla, Dragon Coin flowed freely. The JECA Group's years of operation had long quietly shaped these regions into its own likeness, including Johor, Temasek, and Assam. These newly occupied or supported countries were forced by the JECA Group to implement Dragon Coin. The JECA Group mandated that the basic value of Dragon Coin be determined by the group's credibility. No one is allowed to reject or deface it. Also, the wages paid by the JECA Group are uniformly changed to Dragon Coin. The JECA Group currently employs over 10 million people, counting the farmers breeding insects. In areas under the JECA Group's authority, 1 in 30 people works for the JECA Group. Employees' wages are extremely generous, dispersing a substantial amount of funds in this manner. Coupled with companies and enterprises controlled by the JECA Group, its influence has long penetrated various industries, quickly completing the replacement and value confirmation of Dragon Coin. The JECA Group further announced that in the future, products under the JECA Group, such as Tianyuan hair growth liquid, nearsighted pill, slimming pills, whitening liquid, including food and blood, will all settle in Dragon Coin. The impact of this news is undeniably enormous. It should be noted that the JECA Group's products are sold worldwide, raking in a fortune daily. Countless people rely on this towering tree of the JECA Group to live and prosper. Congo Republic, Upper Katanga Province. Slum. As a populous country in Africa, Congo has a population exceeding 100 million, with 150 million hectares of arable land and rich mineral resources of all kinds. If fully utilized, it could resolve the grain shortage problem on its own and develop into an industrial nation. However, like many African countries, Congo is now plagued by poverty, war, disease, and corruption, which afflict this country like a cancer that has penetrated deep into the bones and cannot be cured. The slum is situated on both sides of a river, with houses built on stretchers of timber planks. Sewage from human factories and various kinds of garbage have long dyed the river water a murky black-purple color, exuding an unpleasant stench. At sunset, a large number of impoverished people are either cooking, doing laundry, or children are jumping into the river, playing happily. Suddenly, a fleet of boats entered this slum area slowly from the river entrance. The fleet was sizable, with personnel holding AK rifles. They were a small gang nearby. Blood extraction, blood extraction. Those who want to sell blood, hurry up, don't delay. No poisonous infections. Don't waste my time, hurry up. On the fleet, the gang leader, holding a loudspeaker, reminded the impoverished people on both banks. The entire slum was in an uproar. Countless men and women, young and old, tried to get close to the fleet, blocking the river completely. I want to sell blood. My blood is clean. Choose me. Choose me. This is my test report. There is nothing wrong with my blood. Boss, I want to sell blood. I have plenty of blood, not afraid of extraction. The impoverished people kept raising their hands, with excitement on everyone's face, clearly selling blood, but their expressions showed no resentment. Instead, each was excited beyond control. Queue up one by one for me. Under the arrangement of the gangsters, medical staff walked out of the fleet and performed blood extraction locally. On average, each person had 700 to 800 milliliters of blood extracted, far exceeding the conventional 400 milliliters. After each person completed the blood extraction, they stood in line on the other side, waiting for the gangsters to give them money. Because every time they sold blood, they could receive banknotes equivalent to $50 from the gang members, which was their happiest day. Most of them had a monthly income of only $20 to $30, with an average daily consumption of less than $1. These $50 were undoubtedly a huge fortune for them. Even if many people extracted too much blood, causing some discomfort, and each had a pale complexion, they didn't care. Poverty was more terrifying than a little discomfort in the body. Many of them couldn't even live beyond 50 years old. Extracting too much blood would harm their body's source, only if they could live until then. But these impoverished people did not know that if their blood were transported to JECA Group's territory, the selling price could go to an exchange rate of 1 milliliter for $1.2 to $1.3, 20 times the money they received for selling blood. As a part of the exploited bottom level of the blood-gold supply chain, in a populous and poor country like Congo, selling blood had become a hope for many to get rich. These impoverished people did not care whether they were exploited or not. Selling blood had become their only means to obtain a large amount of wealth quickly, all waiting eagerly for the gang to issue them US dollars. It had been like this in the past, but today the situation was different. What is this? When the gangsters started giving out money, the blood-selling impoverished people widened their eyes, staring at the unfamiliar banknote with a giant dragon printed on it, bewildered. Money, money. The gang leader, crossing his legs and smoking, answered this question. What money is this? I don't recognize it. I don't want it. I want the US dollars, those green US dollars. Which country's banknote is this? It's the first time I've seen it. Can't buy anything. I don't want this. Exchange it into US dollars for me. How can you gangsters bully people like this? Who would sell blood to you in the future? The impoverished people got anxious, waving the banknotes in their hands, feeling deeply deceived, and their anger started to swell. The gang members got nervous, pointing their guns at the crowd. The gang leader saw the situation wasn't right, hurriedly got up, and explained, "This is JECA Group's money. You all know JECA Group, right? It's the company that buys your blood. Their company's newly discovered currency. This is called Dragon Coin. The Dragon Coin in your hands is worth the same as $50. Who said it couldn't buy things? In our place, it has brought food and you can buy it now. Besides, when you go to the big cities outside, Dragon Coins have already started circulating there long ago, and many merchants accept this Dragon Coin very feasible." Faced with the gang leader's words, the impoverished people were skeptical. "I went to Dam City last month, and I seem to have indeed seen someone using this currency." One of the impoverished people stood out, indicating that the Dragon Coin in their hands was valuable. "I also saw it. Many merchants are accepting this currency. I'm not lying, it's really like this currency can be spent." A few voices rose from the crowd. They had gone to big cities where people were also selling blood, and Dragon Coin payment scenarios were more prevalent in the city. It was relatively backward in the slums and only just beginning to be popularized now. What truly reassured the impoverished people was when the gang leader brought in a grain transport boat, commanding gang members to carry bags of flour and rice, and exchange them on the spot for the impoverished people. Gangsters also understood the principle of long-term interest. These poor people were wealth, and if they rebelled, there wouldn't be blood to buy in the future. Seeing these grains, the impoverished people immediately calmed down, rushed over, and started exchanging with their Dragon Coins. The amount of grain they got was about the same as they usually bought for $50. With a third of the population in Congo suffering from malnutrition, hunger and poverty were linked, and grain was the absolute hard currency in this country. Dragon Coins that could exchange for grain immediately increased these impoverished people's trust greatly. After receiving the grain, the impoverished people, each satisfied, went home to prepare for a hearty meal. As the impoverished people left, the gang leader also took the fleet and returned to the base, and then delivered the strictly preserved blood to bigger cities as soon as possible, handed it over to his superiors, and greased some local officials, considering this transaction complete. The gang leader himself was also just an intermediary trader in the blood gold industry, earning more than the impoverished but not the maximum profit. The blood he submitted would first go to the city and hand it over to a bigger gang. His superiors had superiors, superiors had even higher superiors. Eventually, through layers of transactions, the blood would be trafficked to a large transnational blood company located in Congo. Shareholders of this company included warlords, high officials, and foreign big capitalists, a level he couldn't imagine. And only these transnational blood companies with sky-high connections could transport the blood out of Congo, nailing various relationships along the way, and safely deliver the blood to Jeka Group's territory, earning the most lucrative profit in the blood gold industry. Because of Jeka Group's rigid regulations, the core products of the company only supported Dragon Coin transactions, and these transnational blood companies hoarded and acquired Dragon Coins in large quantities. They sold blood, and Jeka Group delivered Dragon Coins to them as well. However, these transnational blood companies weren't worried about the Dragon Coins they received being worthless paper. They could use Dragon Coins to procure products under Jeka Group, such as whitening liquid, which were hot commodities in countries around the world, with no fear of not selling them. Once sold, they could be exchanged for currencies of various countries, including US dollars and international currency. Through this relationship, they could also become Jeka Group's downstream product distributors, earning an extra layer of profit, hence more actively scrambling for Dragon Coins. Initially, the exchange rate of Dragon Coin to US dollar was 5:1, but due to the scarcity and importance of Dragon Coins, an inversion appeared in the exchange rate of Dragon Coins to US dollars on the black market. The exchange rate of Dragon Coins kept appreciating, with one Dragon Coin able to exchange for $6 or even $7. Despite the high value of Dragon Coin itself, even if beautiful country and these nations do not recognize Dragon Coin, in real life, Dragon Coin continues to circulate. The underworld and those gray industries within beautiful country prefer the sturdy nature and secrecy of Dragon Coin. If they possess the US dollar, laundering it and using it legally are troublesome. But with Dragon Coin, it's much more comfortable, avoiding regulation, as Jeka Group's products are smuggled in, transactions conducted privately, not entering tax and banking records, making it very clean and convenient to use. Jeka Group's vast business network earns and circulates wealth valued at several trillion US dollars annually. The blood gold industry serves as a natural reservoir for Dragon Coin with 400 to 500 million impoverished people, while over 300 million people under Southeast Asia provide scenarios for Dragon Coin's use, gaining more and more people's favor. Jeka Group also succeeded in promoting Dragon Coin, securing a position in the world economic system. The currency issued by a private company has no credibility or value at all, just a piece of waste paper. We will never recognize such currency that can lose its value at any time. Although the promotion of Dragon Coin went very smoothly, not every country is fond of it. For example, beautiful country strongly suppresses it, constantly claiming that Dragon Coin has no actual value, regarding holding Dragon Coin as a crime, refusing to engage in settlement transactions with Dragon Coin through any official and regular channels. Beautiful country not only does this itself but also arranges and operates similarly with its allies and subordinates, attempting to exclude Dragon Coin from the mighty international currency settlement system dominated by the US dollar. However, some allied countries are not obedient, secretly acquiring Dragon Coins as foreign exchange reserves in some instances. Dragon Coin relies on the credit of Jeka Group and its value has been widely recognized. Those who criticize the value of private company-issued currency are merely fearmongering with ulterior motives. Isn't the Fed also a private business dedicated to a few banking giants? Jeka Group issued an announcement to refute the unfounded claims of beautiful country. In fact, Jeka Group doesn't particularly mind this. It's impossible for the whole world to love and recognize it. Jeka Group is just focusing Dragon Coin on circulating within its own sphere of influence, primarily Southeast Asian countries. Countries in Southeast Asia already have close economic ties. Among the 11 countries here, Jeka Group controls 7, leaving only 4, Luzon, Jawa, Timor, and Brunei, which are not under Jeka Group's rule. Firstly, excluding the small nations of Brunei and Timor, each with a population of around 1 million. Their economies are insignificant. What Jekka Group actually needs to incorporate into the Dragon Coin Circle are only Luzon and Jawa. Luzon has a population of over 100 million, a land area of 290,000 square kilometers, and a GDP total of $350 billion, ranking among the top 3 in Southeast Asia in terms of comprehensive strength. Jawa has a land area of 1.91 million square kilometers, a population of 280 million, and a GDP total exceeding $1 trillion. From all aspects of economy, military, culture, technology, education, human resources, it is undoubtedly the largest country in Southeast Asia, although large but not strong. In fact, after the release of Dragon Coin, these two countries realized that Jekka Group did not come with good intentions. The miniature map of Southeast Asia on the Dragon Coin has already exposed the ambition of Jekka Group. The two countries can be described as both hating and fearing Jekka Group and are generally closer to Beautiful Country. Luzon has multiple military bases of Beautiful Country because before World War II, Luzon used to be a colony of Beautiful Country. The populace has pro-US traditions and has always been one of Beautiful Country's lackeys, often engaging in joint exercises with Beautiful Country and Japan. Meanwhile, Jawa has a tradition of anti-Chinese sentiment, still bearing deep resentment and prejudice against Chinese today. They deeply despise Su Jie, the ruler of Jekka Group, as a Chinese, and even more unwillingly accept the presence of Jekka Group. Therefore, after the issuance of Dragon Coin, seeing Jekka Group's every step pressing forward, Luzon and Jawa were unwilling to go along with the flow with Jekka Group, to pursue economic currency integration, or to become puppets of Jekka Group. Ultimately, they both chose to follow Beautiful Country's lead to prohibit Dragon Coin from circulating through any channels in their countries, with severe punishments upon discovery. Their actions naturally also drew the attention of Jekka Group. Chan Country, underground poisonous insect space. A vast sea of blood poured down like torrential rain and flooded the underground space like a deluge, spreading across hundreds of thousands of square meters. Su Jie floated above the blood sea, with the 9-grade sacred lotus suspended above his head. Divine light rotated within his 7 orifices, radiating brilliance across the sky. The 9-grade sacred lotus has once again grown. With Su Jie's meticulous nurturing and the vast supply of top-grade spirit stones, over time, it has sprouted 2 more cotyledons. Now, the holy lotus consists of 6 cotyledons, and the day of blooming and maturing into a 9-grade sacred lotus is drawing nearer. However, unlike in the past, perhaps it's due to Su Jie's long-term practice of blood sea devouring sky demon skill. The sacred lotus is often used by Su Jie to assist in cultivation, providing spiritual energy. Over the years, the originally pure white cotyledons of the 9-grade sacred lotus have gradually developed some blood-red patterns in the veins, making the 9-grade sacred lotus appear somewhat ominous. It's unknown whether, with Su Jie's deeper practice of the demon technique, the 9-grade sacred lotus will transform into a 9-grade blood lotus in the future. Swish! Suddenly, above the blood sea, Su Jie opened his eyes, and electricity seemed to flow from his left eye, tearing through the thick curtain. Deep within the left eye, a brilliant light slowly emerged, like the brightest star in the night sky, yet containing the power of destruction. As the light gradually coalesced, Su Jie's perspective suddenly changed. The world seemed to transform into interwoven filaments, and he became an immortal demon overlooking everything, able to rewrite the space with a gentle flick of those threads. This was merely a psychological sensation. His cultivation was still far from achieving immortality. Su Jie gained some insight and muttered to himself, "The heavenly eye ability's communication with the Tao River has further amplified. This is the power of enlightenment." With a gentle blink, the spiritual power from his left eye touched those filaments, and at that moment, the Tao River opened. Like a giant heavenly eye gazing at the mortal world, the force of the Tao River was invoked, and an indescribable heavenly pressure surged, splitting the blood sea into halves, and a deep ravine appeared on the ground. If not for Su Jie's timely control and the multiple formations in the area, the nearby buildings would have collapsed. If in the past, Su Jie's primordial spirit Heavenly Eye barely opened a 10-centimeter gap in the Tao River to harness its power against enemies. Now the gap widened to a meter. Of course, this was on Blue Star, where the Tao River is weaker, unlike in the Tianyuan world, which offers less amplification. As Su Jie dispersed the power in his left eye, a stream of blood tears flowed from the corner of his eye, making it swell and ache. Indeed, it's still too forced, but at least I found the trick. Next is the painstaking effort. However, Su Jie showed no pain. Instead, his face was full of smiles, because Su Jie discovered the key to breaking through to the Taoist platform realm. Su Jie had already reached the secret realm 5th level. His 5 internal organs were cultivated to perfection, reaching the peak of the secret realm. But he had not found a way to break through to the Taoist platform realm until his recent attempt enlightened him on the path he needed to take. The 7 levels of the Taoist platform realm correspond to the 7 orifices of the human body. Su Jie first opened the eye orifice in his left eye, and the heavenly eye was a manifestation of this eye orifice. To break through to the Taoist platform realm, he needed not only the reverse baptism of the 7 orifices by the 5 internal organs essence chi, but also the synchronized baptism of the primordial spirit's eye orifice with the breath of the Tao River. The cultivated 5 internal organs from the secret realm baptize the 7 orifices, and the breath of the Tao River baptizes the primordial spirit's 7 orifices, both receiving baptism, combining to form the heavenly path of the Taoist platform realm. Blue Star's Tao River environment is more gentle, suitable for my cultivation. Su Jie was in good spirits. Compared to the terrifying Tao River in the Tianyuan world, the Tao River on Blue Star was gentler and easier for Su Jie to adapt, allowing him to ascend to the Taoist platform realm sooner. Originally, Su Jie planned to push forward and further consolidate, completing the refinement of the left eye's eye orifice sooner. But just then, the external formation was touched, and Su Jie scanned it with his divine sense, discovering it was Lu Yingying who had come. Cultivation was not urgent, and Su Jie got up, put away the 9-grade sacred lotus, and left the underground poisonous insect space. In the car returning to Jekka Group Company, Lu Yingying was reporting the recent situation to Su Jie. That's how it is. 3 aircraft carriers from the beautiful country have completed their rendezvous near the Indian Ocean, while 2 others are stationed in the Australia region. Latitude and longitude coordinates are. Lu Yingying conveyed the events slowly to Su Jie, focusing on the beautiful country's military moves. As for why Jekka Group knew so clearly, it was because there were satellites from Jekka Group monitoring overhead of the aircraft carrier battle group. Scout satellites tracking aircraft carriers were not as people imagined, endlessly searching the vast oceans and continuously searching the sea surface. Instead, satellites started real-time monitoring the moment the carrier left port, with spy satellites relaying to keep track of the fleet's movements. Jekka Group's Kunping rocket was still launching satellites into the sky, although recently the frequency had declined because the number of Jekka Group's in-orbit satellites was already sufficient, with more than 20,000 satellites. Most of these were small and microsatellites, but there were also many large satellites for espionage and military purposes. The large number of satellites allowed Jekka Group to arrange calmly, with spy satellites monitoring every military port of the beautiful country at all times. The beautiful country was well aware of this because they were doing the same to Jekka Group. It was just that the Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser can dive underwater. Once submerged in the ocean, satellites can't track them. This was the reason the beautiful country feared Jekka Group so much. Even their powerful aircraft carrier fleet dared not easily enter Mengjia Bay. Su Jie, do you think the beautiful country can't hold back and wants to start a war with us? Lu Yingying asked Su Jie while holding a file. The beautiful country's grand mobilization inevitably made Lu Yingying nervous. After all, the beautiful country had been the Blue Star dominator for nearly 100 years since World War II. I don't think so. If they wanted to start a war with us, their mobilization would be even larger, and they wouldn't let our satellites keep watching their aircraft carriers overhead. They have anti-satellite weapons available, or at least they could learn from us, using satellites for suicidal collisions. Su Jie shook his head and explained, I think the beautiful country is putting on a show for us, knowing our satellites are watching their carrier battle group and still mobilizing troops on a large scale, proving they don't want to start a war with us, at least not at this time. Their actions aim to scare us into backing down, voluntarily conceding and shrinking our expansion, hoping to leverage it for gains. Is the beautiful country really that cautious? Hearing Su Jie's analysis, Lu Yingying instinctively blurted out. Su Jie pinched Lu Yingying's cheek, saying with amusement, "You think the beautiful country is brave? It's just your prejudice and misconception. Tell me, when has the beautiful country been the first to rush into a major war? During World War I, they watched from North America, joining only when victory was near to gather benefits. In World War II, if it weren't for Japan bombing Pearl Harbor, the beautiful country would also have joined late to pick up the spoils. After World War II, every time they fought a war, they only entered judged to have a high chance of success, and they liked to gang up on small countries and weak nations or support forces to conduct proxy wars, reaping the benefits from behind. The beautiful country seldom took the lead to tackle tough battles. It's a characteristic rooted in their angst pirate nature of bullying the weak. It seems that's indeed the case." Lu Yingying blinked her eyes and found that things might indeed be as Su Jie described. The beautiful country, as the world's policeman, frequently bullied small and weak nations, leaving the impression of being overbearing, yet in reality, they were the most cunning ones. That's why the beautiful country is very calculating, allowing us to take bolder actions. While Su Jie spoke, the car arrived at the JECA Group headquarters building. Just after getting out of the car, a beautiful journalist who had been waiting there brightened her eyes, holding a microphone with bolt-like frequency, rushing over. Mr. Su, may I ask your opinion regarding Luzon and Jawa countries rejecting Dragon Coin for circulation and settlement? Even if this agile beauty ran at bolt speed, she couldn't breach the genetic warrior guard's blockade, stopped outside. Su Jie looked at the beautiful journalist, and in a good mood, he answered the question. The rise of Dragon Coin requires support from other countries, especially Southeast Asian countries, to achieve more positive currency diplomacy in its promotion and to establish a global partner economic network. Any Southeast Asian country trying to reject Dragon Coin, raising some so-called Dragon Coin threat argument due to geopolitical reasons, is merely trying to stop the inevitable. The promotion and circulation of Dragon Coin will never halt because of opposition from one or two countries. On the contrary, if one continues to obstruct Dragon Coin, perhaps it's time for you to recall the deep-seated fears you have. Su Jie spoke a meaningful sentence and then walked into the JECA Group headquarters building under the journalist's excited gaze. The beautiful journalist was very excited, sensing hot news. It was exclusive news, because just now, Su Jie's words carried a single underlying meaning, almost pointing out Luzon and Jawa countries by name. Is there no respect if you dare not accept my currency? The beautiful journalist looked through her camera's photos where she captured Su Jie with a cold smile and dangerous eyes. She already decided to use this photo with a death glare headline tomorrow. The news was sure to explode in popularity. Jawa country. In an industrial warehouse on the southern outskirts of Ceylon City, Medan Province. A large number of men and women are busy in the factory, producing not ordinary industrial goods but handling bags filled with fresh blood. They check the quality of the blood in the bags, discard the defective ones damaged in transport, complete the packaging, and then neatly store them in plasma refrigerators. Beep beep. A truck drove into the warehouse, and a young man from the passenger seat got off the vehicle. Several strong workers opened the truck's container and started unloading boxes filled with JECA Group's popular products, such as hair growth liquid, nearsighted pill, slimming pills, and whitening liquid. Uncle, this new batch just arrived, costing 580 million Dragon Coins. The young man walked up to an elderly man with graying beard and handed over a list. The elderly man was named Gong Guokai. He was the president of the local Chinese Business Association in Medan Province. After JECA Group began to rise in Shan country, Gong Guokai recognized this as an opportunity and actively aligned himself with JECA Group to conduct business. Initially, Gong Guokai was just looking for a livelihood for the Chinese people. The discrimination and exclusion they faced in Jawa country made living there difficult. But since the controllers of JECA Group were Chinese, they might be receptive to the approach. The fact proved Gong Guokai right, as Jeka Group chose him to be a lower-level distributor after assessing his capabilities. Gong Guokai distributed Jeka Group's products in Jawa and collected blood there to resell to Jeka Group simultaneously. Due to the close proximity between Jawa and Jeka Group and the extreme economic disparity in Jawa, blood is procured from the poor and Jeka Group's popular products are sold to the wealthy. With over 200 million people in Jawa, it was like a land filled with gold for Gong Guokai, resulting in significant wealth and expansion of his business and influence over the years, with connections to both sides of the law in Jawa, dominating about 1/3 of the market. Gong Guokai took the list from his family nephew, glanced through it and said, "The goods are a bit insufficient. Uncle, dragon coins are in high demand, and we don't have enough reserves. Besides, the blood smuggling ships are under strict inspection, and we can't sell the blood to retrieve dragon coin funds from Jeka Group. Don't know what the bureaucrats are thinking. They've tightened their grip, but they don't show any mercy when collecting money from us." The nephew gave a bitter smile, spreading his hands indicating helplessness. Later, use the reserved gold to exchange for some at Jeka Bank. Most likely, the bureaucrats in Jawa have an increased appetite and need to be fed. Gong Guokai patted his nephew's shoulder and turned to walk into the factory. "Mr. Gong." "Good afternoon, Mr. Gong." "Good health, Mr. Gong." The factory employees smiled. Most were Chinese, and many were older or even disabled. "Everyone, keep busy. The company is treating everyone to a meal tonight." Gong Guokai smiled at each employee. After becoming successful, he hadn't forgotten his original intention and recruited many Chinese to work for him. In his factory, he provided jobs for many poor people who struggled to continue living due to disability or old age. Otherwise, relying on the Jawa government, that's out of the question. The exclusionary attitude towards Chinese in Jawa was prevalent not just at the bottom but also at the top. Conducting business without encountering cold shoulders and difficulties was a rarity for the Chinese. Entering the office, Gong Guokai opened the safe. Inside the safe were piles of gold bricks, which Gong Guokai stuffed into a suitcase and handed it over to his nephew and several bodyguards. These were members of the Gong family, with shared blood relations resulting in natural trust. This was also a prevalent method for Chinese people in Jawa, sticking together for warmth. "Take these gold bricks and the batch of 200 tons of blood. Set out for Jeka Group to exchange them for dragon coins as operational capital." "Okay, Uncle. I'll arrange the convoy right away." The nephew nodded and led the team out of the office. After his nephew left, Gong Guokai pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Beep beep. The call was connected after several rings, and Gong Guokai immediately smiled and said, "General Dibong." Yes, it's me. I just got a batch of good wine, inviting you tonight to do me the honor." "Mayor Mei Wu, yes, we haven't gathered for a while. Tonight. Let's set it for tonight. Let's not leave until we're drunk." "Director Katut, what are you saying? How could I forget you? Recently I haven't found the time. Been busy non-stop daily. You see, I'm reaching out as soon as I manage some free time. If I ever forget anyone, I can't forget our old friends at the Customs General Administration." After making a dozen calls, Gong Guokai prepared red envelopes, which contained not cash but anonymous checks. The numbers on the checks were enough to make ordinary people's eyes bulge, representing a wealth impossible to achieve even with a lifetime of hard work for many. Prepared for a substantial outflow tonight, Gong Guokai asked his secretary to arrange tonight's banquet. After a night of drunkenness, Gong Guokai distributed the red envelopes and received promises that his business would no longer be disturbed. Gong Guokai originally thought the issue had been resolved. After all, he had spent generously, and those attending the banquet should be sated no matter how good their appetite. But to Gong Guokai's utter shock, on the third day, he received terrible news. His nephew from the family was captured by the Anti-Smuggling Coast Guard Bureau on the Java Public Sea, charged with illegal smuggling, manufacturing firearms, violent resistance to law enforcement, and prosecuted, with all transported goods confiscated. Upon hearing this news, Gong Guokai's face turned livid with anger. "Bastards! They take the money and do nothing. These bastards who eat you alive." Furious, Gong Guokai kicked over the table, wishing he could slap those who promised him the safety of his business during the banquet that night. But reality forced Gong Guokai to calm down, dialing several numbers on his phone consecutively. The officials who used to address each other as brothers now dodged and shirked, feigning ignorance, difficulty, and helplessness. It was only through sufficient financial pressure that Gong Guokai finally managed to maneuver through his connections. 2 days later, Gong Guokai saw his nephew from the family in a prison in the Jawa country. Through the iron bars, Gong Guokai's eyes turned red when he saw his nephew. His nephew's face was bruised and swollen. His right leg was limping, and whip marks were visible on his face and body, revealing that he had suffered abuse in prison. "Uncle!" Upon meeting, the nephew couldn't hold back his tears, his face written with indignation and anger. How dare they do this?" Gong Guokai tightly gripped the iron bars, his knuckles turning white. He had no children due to health reasons, treating his family nephew like a son. Seeing his nephew in this state, the anger was imaginable. "Uncle, those anti-smuggling customs of Jawa stopped us, and without any explanation, they attacked, breaking my left leg. Xiao Long, third brother, and Xiao Su were beaten to death by those beasts." The nephew, gritting his teeth, oozed hatred as he recounted his ordeal at sea to Gong Guokai. "What?" Gong Guokai's breath grew heavy, his heart pounded like a drum, and dizziness swept through his mind. The 3 deceased were juniors he'd known since childhood. Hearing their demise sent Gong Guokai's inner fury uncontrollable, punching the iron bars hard. "Uncle, they're different this time. Seem to be targeting us. Be careful outside." The nephew glanced around and lowered his voice, noting that when encountering anti-smuggling customs personnel, the worst scenario had only involved goods being seized, with people quickly bailed out. This was a completely different attitude from directly assaulting and even murdering. Gong Guokai took a deep breath, rapidly reflecting on the recent situation in his mind, seemingly realizing something, his face growing darker. Before Gong Guokai could talk with his nephew for a few minutes, prison guards came to usher him away. "Visiting time is over, hurry and leave." Gong Guokai steadied himself, speaking to his nephew. "Be cautious inside. Know what to say and what not to. I'll get you out soon." "Uncle, I understand. I'll never divulge even under torture." With his nephew's assurance, Gong Guokai left the prison. Outside, it was pouring rain. Gong Guokai's expression was unsettled, already sensing a storm approaching the Chinese community he belonged to. In the next 2 days, after diligent inquiries, Gong Guokai gradually figured out the crux of the problem. The highest political situation in Jawa country was turbulent, with a new leader coming into power, named Wei Yinman, a proponent of the Great Java Country faction, continuously advocating Jawa as the strongest country in Southeast Asia, a hegemon in the Southeast Asian region. Moreover, during his tenure, he frequently made anti-Chinese remarks, seeking to promote Great Java ethnocentrism. Recently, Jekka Group's promotion of Dragon Coin has clearly revealed their ambitions to integrate Jawa into their economic system. Jawa country chose not to accept the promotion of Dragon Coin, unwilling to be controlled by Jekka Group. They opted for resistance, attempting to show Jekka Group their determination. Moreover, with 5 aircraft carriers from the beautiful country now pressing on their borders, this gave Jawa immense confidence, believing that Jekka Group would absolutely not dare to act. When Gong Guokai realized this, it was already too late to take countermeasures. At the factory in the southern suburbs of Ceylon City, large numbers of military police crashed through the gates, surrounding the factory completely. Gong Guokai stood at the office window, watching those military police violently arrest one Chinese employee after another. Any resistance was met with a beating or even gunshots. Although the factory had armed forces, they were still weaker than the military police of Jawa country. The resistance did not last long before the factory was completely occupied by Jawa country's military police. The Chinese employees were pinned to the ground. Some had head wounds bleeding profusely. Some were beaten with batons resulting in fractures, and some were shot, clutching their wounds and wailing. The once orderly factory turned into a place of chaos, with wounded people everywhere, the packed blood bags scattered on the ground, and JECA Group's best-selling products seized case by case. Is it all recorded? In the office, besides Gong Guokai, there was a male secretary. Although he was trembling slightly, he nodded heavily and said with his phone, "Boss, I have filmed everything according to your instructions and extracted the footage from the surveillance cameras. Upload the videos online, try to spread them widely and quickly. We won't be able to hold out for long outside." Gong Guokai's voice seemed calm. After all, he was just a businessman, unable to contend with the military forces. Upon seeing those Jawa country military police appear, he knew he couldn't escape this disaster today. "I am uploading them now. I have posted on all domestic and overseas platforms. Let everyone see the atrocities of these Jawa country people." The secretary kept nodding, fingers operating on the computer. In a moment, the office door was forcibly burst open, and Jawa country's military police rushed in. Gong Guokai did not resist, extending his hands, letting them arrest him. "Behave yourself." One Jawa country military policeman snorted coldly, displeased with Gong Guokai's composure, hitting Gong Guokai on the back with a baton, causing him to stagger and fall to the ground. "Tie him up." When Gong Guokai was dragged out of the factory, he saw the person in charge of directing this arrest operation was the same high official who had once attended his banquet. "Ketut, it's actually you." Gong Guokai's eyes were filled with resentment. Ketut was the director of Jawa country's customs anti-smuggling team, specializing in managing the customs, a lucrative post, and he had taken the most bribes from him, yet he was the one biting back. "I am only following orders, Boss Gong. Don't blame me. Blame yourselves for being Chinese and working for JECA Group. I personally have no desire to target an old friend like you." Ketut stepped in front of Gong Guokai, speaking insincerely. "Bah!" Gong Guokai spat onto Ketut, gritting his teeth. "Stop acting. You're just envious of my wealth and want to eliminate JECA Group's Dragon Coin influence, specifically targeting me. Stop pretending to cry over spilt milk. Humph, bold. Take him to our customs anti-smuggling territory. I will take good care of him." Looking at the spit on his collar, Ketut's smile vanished, eyes coldly fixed on Gong Guokai. "Ketut, dare to do this to me today? JECA Group won't let you off the hook in the future." Gong Guokai knew he was in trouble, but did not regret his actions. "JECA Group, do you think the beautiful country's military is just for show?" Ketut sneered sarcastically. Right now, the beautiful country's deadly fleet was cruising in the Indian Ocean, only a step away from Jawa. He didn't believe JECA Group would dare to stir up trouble at such a critical moment, as if the 5 aircraft carrier battle groups of the beautiful country were just for decoration. "Take him away." Ketut stopped talking nonsense, ordered them to escort Gong Guokai away, then turned to look at the boxes of gold, money, and goods collected from the factory, unable to suppress the greed in his eyes. By the end of May, a video started going viral on the internet. The video shows a large number of Javanese military police forcibly raiding an industrial warehouse, smashing, looting, and burning, and arresting Chinese individuals one by one, seizing property. The factory's original security resistance fought back. A fierce exchange of fire occurred on site, but the Javanese military police eventually triumphed. After all, apart from the police, the Javanese military was also involved, and with the presence of the army, the factory guards found it hard to resist. This place wasn't Mexico, and the Javanese army had no issue taking on gangs. Gong Guokai's strength wasn't as formidable as the gangs in Mexico. But according to the video from the scene, at least dozens of factory employees died, and even more were injured. The video spread widely mainly because the products seized from the factory were hair growth liquid, whitening liquid, and similar items from JECA Group, and as the incident occurred in Jawa, very close to the JECA Group sphere of influence, it naturally aroused curiosity. After the video spread, Javanese officials immediately came forward to speak. The police held a news conference, with the chief inspector explaining, this was a legitimate crackdown operation against a group of criminal elements, led by Gong Guokai, who were stationed in the southern suburbs of Ceylon City, involved in smuggling, arms manufacture, official business collusion, and other offenses. After days of efforts and investigation by the Javanese police, this criminal gang was finally completely apprehended and eradicated. Due to the gang's resistance in the process, assistance was requested from the army to completely eliminate them. Some casualties were unavoidable in the crossfire, but the casualties are not as many as reported online. Jawa Country categorized this incident as a crime crackdown, while downplaying, without mentioning it was a Chinese factory, nor that it was a Jekka Group's subordinate distributor. They skimmed over the casualties lightly. After the incident, more chaos erupted in Jawa. Javanese people in Ceylon City saw the military police's action against Gongwa Kai as an opportunity, imitating them over the next 3 days by committing various crimes against local Chinese, setting fire to and robbing numerous shopping centers and stores, with increasing riots and crime rates that seemed to be spreading further. More related videos circulated online, though Javanese officials made great efforts to delete them, hoping to erase evidence. Yet they could only delete domestically, not those abroad. Moreover, the military police sent by Javanese officials to halt the chaos were turning a blind eye, and some even personally joined the looting. The country's anti-Chinese sentiment erupted completely at this moment. This was beyond Jawa Country's expectations. They had not anticipated such an escalation. The new Javanese president's personal stance played a role here. As the saying goes, the higher-ups influenced the lower ranks, leaving Jawa Country unable to resolve it. Thus, a riot ensued in Ceylon City, spreading beyond. News leaked out, and many people were enraged, holding protests everywhere. External pressure made Jawa Country feel immense stress. They kept downplaying and covering up. Despite the many involved in the riots, they arrested merely a handful but ignored a greater number, trying to muddle through. However, if Jawa doesn't act, someone will teach them to. May 26th. Just on the 4th day after Gongwa Kai was arrested, Jekka Group spoke out publicly. This is a premeditated crime against the employees of Jekka Group, gravely jeopardizing our interests. As such, I declare that Jekka Group will implement armed protection for expatriates in Jawa. This announcement drew worldwide attention, especially from Jawa Country, causing them to anxiously react. It's a misunderstanding, we can resolve it ourselves. We can ensure the safety of local Chinese. Jawa Country was desperately explaining, while frantically contacting Beautiful Country. Evidently, they hadn't expected Jekka Group to dare act recklessly at this critical time, with Beautiful Country's annihilation fleet gathering in the Indian Ocean. Yet Jekka Group dared to stir trouble in their Jawa. Didn't they fear the Beautiful Country fleet destroying them? But regardless of external opinions, Jekka Group's actions saw no delay. The day after the announcement, on the morning of May 27th, Chan Country time, Jekka Group stationed at various military airports in Johor, equipped the Magic Bird fighters with missiles and precision-guided bombs, with ground crew diligently working. Once fueled, with a pull on the pilot's control stick, the Magic Bird fighters took off from the runway, completing formation in the sky, with a large number of Magic Bird fighters converged and flew grandly toward Jawa. Johor and Jawa are separated only by the Malacca Strait. Many residents along both shores of the Malacca Strait heard the roar overhead this day, as dense formations of fighters flew over them. A large number of Magic Bird fighters dispersed into formation over the Malacca Strait, heading toward various targets in Jawa depending on operational objectives. The sound of air raid alarms filled the skies above every city in Jawa Country that day, casting a shadow of air assault across the entire nation. Rumble. Missiles separated from the belly of the Magic Bird fighters, with ignition after separation, flew toward military command bases, communication hubs, missile bases, military warehouses, transport hubs, and military airports, among other key targets in Jawa. The air raid by the Magic Bird fighters severely weakened the Javanese Army's command, communication, and intelligence capabilities. War potential. The Javanese Air Force trembled in fear facing the fighters soaring over their homeland. The Javanese Air Force has about 30,000 active personnel and possesses a total of 290 fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters, including 4 fighter squadrons, 1 attack aircraft squadron, 7 training aircraft squadrons, 5 transport aircraft squadrons, 3 helicopter squadrons, and one special task mixed squadron. Most of the aircraft are relatively old and outdated models, and the Air Force's hard power is not even stronger than Temasek. The aircraft that dared to take off to confront the Magic Bird fighters were quickly blasted out of the sky, becoming one of the Magic Bird fighters' achievements. JECA Group's Magic Bird fighter completed the Strategic Air Superiority mission. In fact, when the Magic Bird fighters were deployed, the Navy was also in action. Surabaya Naval Base. This is the Jawa country's first fleet headquarters and also the largest naval base in Jawa. The Javanese Navy has always ranked first among Southeast Asian countries, owning over 30 escort ships, controlling nearly all the important waterways in Southeast Asia, making its Navy scale ranked first in Southeast Asia quite normal. But today, the Javanese Navy faces a disaster. May 27th, 5 a.m., a Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser surfaced. Without any delay, anti-ship missiles were immediately launched. Missiles flew over the sea, breaking through the radar deployed by the Jawa country at ultra-low altitudes, a tactic once used effectively by JECA Group when attacking India's Andaman Sea Air Base, and today it proves just as effective. India's Navy couldn't resist the night raid by the Devourer-class cruiser, and neither could the Javanese Navy. Although their Navy ranks first in Southeast Asia, compared to India, there's a considerable gap. And India's Navy has already been sunk by JECA Group into Mengjia Bay. This comparison makes it clear how weak the Javanese Navy is in front of JECA Group. Missiles incoming. When the alarm sounded, most of the Javan soldiers at Surabaya Naval Base were still asleep, unaware of what was happening. Boom! On the wharf bridge, a Matadina-class frigate docked. There was hit by a supersonic Swordfish anti-ship missile. The Matadina class is the most advanced escort ship of Jawa, with a full load displacement of 2,365 tons, equipped with a single-barrel 76mm main gun, 12 vertical launch Mica air defense missiles, 2 quadruple flying fish anti-ship missile launchers, 1 Millennium CIWS, 2 single-barrel 20mm secondary guns, 2 triple 324mm torpedo launchers, a helicopter deck and hangar, with a max speed of 28 knots. This most advanced warship of Jawa, under the attack of Swordfish anti-ship missiles, seemed as fragile as paper. The missile penetrated the midsection of the Matadina-class frigate, a single shot to the soul. When the 900 kilograms warhead exploded, its power was more than the 2,365-ton escort ship could withstand. In the explosion, the midsection of the Matadina-class frigate arched high, the entire hull snapping like a broken chopstick. In the sound of steel twisting and tearing, the frigate broke in two. Boom! 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 Swordfish and Flying Fish anti-ship missiles stormed into Surabaya military port, commencing their massacre. The warships that Jawa country took pride in seemed particularly fragile under the assault of anti-ship missiles. The escort ship's tonnage was there and parked at the dock like shooting at fixed targets. Any anti-ship missile hit led to either immediate sinking or severe damage. Apart from the warships docked, the naval facilities and Marines on shore also faced attacks. Many were whisked into hell mid-slumber from a wave of explosions, dying in great peace. When the attack ended, all 10 frigates docked at Surabaya base were sunk. A third of Jawa country's main fleet submerged. This is the might of the Devourer-class cruiser. Its overwhelming firepower makes it an undefeatable ship for a small nation's navy, even if facing just one. The strength of the Devourer-class cruiser lies not only at sea but also in simultaneous land operations. In the outer sea between Sumatra Island and Java Island, the sea parted as a Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser leaped, sliding water off its hull like a waterfall, fog diffusing, forming rainbows in the sunlight's refraction. Cruise missile launch. Without any delay, from the Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser, missile launch units opened, cruise missiles fired, gleaming trails streaming toward the Jawa country's largest city, Yogyakarta City, precisely aimed at the heavily armed military bases around Yogyakarta. Executing land attack missions, this Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser mainly carried cruise missiles, launching hundreds in one go, completing strikes on military bases surrounding Yogyakarta. Cruise missiles mostly flew at ultra-low altitudes of 15 to 50 meters, making radar around Yogyakarta difficult for early warning, slow to react, ensuring half the mission's success. The largest military base around Yagata, amidst blaring alarms, many soldiers in disarray met the assault bombing by cruise missiles. Boom! A cruise missile landed among the crowd, detonating hundreds of kilograms of explosives, turning an area of 100 meters into desolation instantly. The battalion-level troops originally training here became shredded by explosive light or blown away by shock waves, internal organs shattered by the impact, collapsing and coughing blood.